Barely.
Okay, we're ready to go. You ready?
Yep.
Good evening. The March 12th, 2018 agenda meeting of the Milltown Borough Council will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Dixon?
Here.
Councilman Farkas?
Here.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Present.
Councilman Legati?
Here.
Councilwoman Mayer?
Here.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 present.
Thank you. Will the clerk please read the meeting statement?
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this regular business meeting of the Borough Council was provided by the adoption of a resolution and the posting, filing, and forwarding of a copy of the same to the official borough newspapers, Home News Tribune, and Star Ledger Publishing Companies on February 20th, 2018. Public participation in this meeting will be permitted during public hearings and after the agenda of scheduled matters has been completed.
Thank you. Please rise for a moment of silence, followed by a salute to our nation's flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Next, we have items for discussion. First on the agenda is a presentation by Boy Scout Troop 33 for an update on the work completed at the Schwendeman cabin property. Scoutmaster George Murray.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for allowing me a couple minutes here. Just wanted to first go through a couple of quick thank yous. I would like to thank Mayor Stieber and council for your continued support in allowing the troop to take part in such a wonderful restoration project. Ralph Jesnowski and Milltown Borough employees for all the support that they're helping us with. Milltown Police and PBA for all their support with helping us when we do the Eagle Scout projects, and they're always asking us if we need anything. Mr. McClellan and CME for all the support when the Eagle Scouts are always asking you questions. Mike and Alan for supporting us when we have questions from their commissions, and Council President Dixon for allowing the Scouts to hold our functions there and everything else. He's a really big supporter, and I thank everyone for that. Currently, we have Matthew Cody that's working on his Eagle Scout project around the pond area, and from the photos that you can see, we've had probably 4 trips there already, and we've cleaned it up dramatically. So that is Matthew's Eagle Scout project, working around the pond, the debris, the trees. We're resetting all the fencing, and we're going to prepare that for clean it with, and then put mulch and removing all the bamboo. So we're cleaning that whole area up. From there, we're actually preparing a couple more proposed projects. Like once we start cleaning it up, then like another proposed Eagle Scout project could be in the front and in the back for like a butterfly garden and nature walking paths. So as we go through, we go up, we clean all the debris, we clean all the scrub brush, get all the invasive species out, and just start getting rid of all that. So, and then the bamboo, whatever bamboo is remaining, that's going to be a overall project. As when we start seeing it starting to regrow, we're going to continue to keep pulling that out, so we don't have that there anymore. There's just one more big grove of bamboo in the back along the house. The house is on Brook Drive, so there's one more piece back there that we could get later on. One of the things we were also looking at was for restoring the interior and waterproofing the cabin and preparing the house portion of it, the newer section, for whatever council needs and for the commissions. I know there was a lot of talk about getting it ready for having meetings there for the environmental commissioning or the watershed partnership, and the scouts, potentially the scouts having meetings there and going through and making sure. So we're working just to start getting ready for that, going through, cleaning up, taking the the old bathroom fixtures out upstairs. There's a big jacuzzi and stuff like that. Getting all that stuff, removing that, make sure everything's capped off and cleaned up, so then we can have the meeting places. We're going to make sure that there's the working toilets, first floor, second floor, things like that. Let's see. So a lot of the scrub brush that is around there, once we start getting into it, we're going to just start getting it, chipping it up, cleaning the whole thing up. So if you ever drive by there now, you can see there's a big difference from when we were there, you know, a few weeks ago or even a month ago. So we're really making a lot of progress. So some of the requests that we had was if we can install some motion lights on the exterior of the cabin. And I didn't know how to put that request in, so we wanted to see, just to make it more visible. So if there's somebody walking around on the property, if there's motion lights on the cabin or the house, the back of the house, it lights up. So if there's anybody around there, they can, you know, starts to deter them. And then we wanted to also see if we can install a simple alarm system with some horns and strobes, just to deter or better secure the property there. The only unfortunate thing is we wouldn't be able to tie it into to dispatch or anything else like that. We're getting a lot of the stuff that we need, materials, donated to the Scouts through various towns or departments or private parties are actually donating a lot of the stuff for us. The one potential question that we had, and I was talking to Councilwoman Kerber about it, was possibly in the future removing or demucking some of the pond to try to get that a little bit deeper so we can actually have fish in there. We had a fish hatchery actually willing to donate, once we get everything set up, donate fish for us to put in there so we can start to keep the water regenerating and keep the water clean. So that's, you know, we just needed a little deeper to have the fish to be able to survive. So, and I wanted to see if anybody had any questions, or if I need to take any notes and I can follow up with anything.
Any questions for the Scoutmaster?
How deep is the pond now?
It appears that it's probably 5 to 6 feet, but there's probably just as much muck that's in there because it's been just years of leaves and debris that's just settling in there.
And you need to, how deep do you need to go, or is the 5 to 6 okay? You're just looking to rake out all the.
That I'm not sure. We would want to actually, you know, see what the recommendations are to hold over some fish. Like we're thinking like bass, sunnies, you know, that type of thing, just to keep the water flowing.
And then with that, any sort of like domed covering that would go over the pond, I would think, to keep the leaves out for the future?
No, we're actually, a lot of the trees that were hanging over the pond, a lot of them were dead. The Ralph's guys actually took a few of them down, and we actually started taking a couple of them down already, the ones that were hanging over, dropping a lot of the debris in there.
Okay.
Any other questions?
George, what's your next phase? And the reason I ask too is because the Environmental Commission was speaking about this to see if you needed help going forward. So in the next few months, would you reach out for help from the community or from the Environmental Commission to do whatever's coming up down the road?
Sure. We're actually looking to, now that Matthew's Eagle Scout project is well underway, we're actually starting to gear up for working on the cabin, because that's been a problem with water leaking into it, or debris around it. So we wanted to clean the perimeter of the house and the cabin, and then start waterproofing it and making sure that everything is dry, no water gets inside.
So yeah, I think it'd be great if you could keep us updated too.
Come here as much as you would like. That's
Great.
Not a problem at all.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I think Mr. Murray was asking council if he would be allowed to put some motion detectors and an inside, maybe a little local alarm system on there to keep the place more secure. Do we need to just allow him to do that. You know, he's getting a lot of the equipment donated, but I think he's looking for us to guide him on whether or not he's able to do that or not.
Yeah, I guess the council would probably have to, probably vote on that to allow that, would you think?
Yeah, the borough resolution.
Yeah.
And then, I guess by resolution, and in the meantime, we can figure out,
I was gonna say, if
How
you'd
it
like,
would be
I
put
can
in.
contact you to see what you're looking for permission. We can draft a resolution.
Sure.
And I can bring it back to council at our, whenever we get it done, so that they can review it, so that can include any work we wanna do on the building, the alarm systems, the lights, any additional work that you guys are doing outside of the scope of the project that was permitted, when Mr. Cody got his approvals. So I have your email, I can contact you tomorrow, I'll send you an email, and we can start to work on it to see what we need to do. That way we can bring it back and give them a list.
Sure, not a problem.
right, I guess, and you'd want to clue in any council people whose departments are touched, so they know what's going on.
Okay?
I would also be concerned, just with making sure that all the folks down at Borough Hall for the construction office are aware, because there may be, if you're running wires, even though it's low voltage, electrical licensing, given that it's, you know,
Correct.
public property, just to make sure everything's done
With to
properly
code, yes.
and to code. So,
And I could, I'll definitely let the chief of police understand where we're going and what we want to do, and so that the police department is aware. But is there, you know, before they get their resolution all squared away, is there any discussion of council that objections to George maybe doing that?
I would just be concerned with the audible alarms and strobes. We do have residents over that way. I would say that you should, at a minimum, run it past them first. I don't know where they'd be placed, or, you know, if the residents or neighbors would be affected. I mean, motion sensor is one thing, but strobe lights, because if you have deer running through there, are they gonna set it off for a raccoon? And, you know, now you got a
Well, I would
strobing
think
light in your eyes
that
every
the strobes
day.
and alarm would be for someone trying to break
Entry.
into the building and
Yes.
entering
Okay.
into the building, so.
Right, and George, we would have somebody, yourself, maybe a few other people in case to shut it down at a
And the
certain point.
police, yes,
At a certain point, we can make those arrangements as well.
sure. Okay,
Very good.
anything else?
Any other questions for the Scoutmaster?
I just have one more request, if I can bother you for another 2 minutes.
Sure.
So we would like to just let everyone know that we have the spaghetti dinner on April 15th, Sunday, April 15th, from 4 to 7. Tickets, it's at the American Legion. Tickets, you can get any from your local scout. And we're actually, what we do is we do placemats. As you can see, the CME's right over here, because they supported us in the past. But these are placemats that the businesses, local businesses in town can actually pay and get their business cards on there for supporting the scouts. So if anyone wants to reach out, you can find any local scout or reach out to us.
Sounds great.
All right, thank you, everyone, I appreciate it.
Thank
you
you.
for your
Thank
time.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, Resolution 18-008, a resolution of the Borough Council, the Borough of Milltown, amending the Community Development Block Grant application to include the purchase of a senior transportation bus.
Hi, yes, Mr. Mayor. I had my meeting with seniors on March 5th, and they expressed interest in purchasing a new bus. The bus that we have is from 2005. I did get a mechanics report, and he says within a year and a half, or 2 years, you're going to have to replace the bus. There are issues with it. And with the CDBG grant, we do have enough funding, just about, depending upon, which vendor we go with. So most of the grant funding will cover the cost of a new bus.
Now, Denise, at the last meeting, when I asked you to see if the HUD money or the CBG money could be used for this bus,
Yes,
is that what you're amending here on this?
yes, exactly.
Okay, and how much did we get estimates on a bus, and how much are we proposed in getting from the HUD money this year?
I don't have any estimates on the bus. I don't know if Councilwoman Kerber does, but the current balance that would be available towards the bus would be, from the HUD funds and all, would be $63,582.20.
Now, we don't get $63,000,
That amount has been accruing since 2014.
so you're going to empty that account for the,
Well,
depending on how much a bus costs?
In 2014, we asked for senior center improvements, and I'll be honest with you, I don't recall what we even asked for the improvements to be at that point. There's a balance of $12,582.20 from that grant. In 2015, we asked for senior center improvements. There's a balance of $17,000. In 16, we asked for senior center improvements. There's a balance of $17,000 also. And in 17, we did request for a senior citizen bus, and that also has a balance of 17. So if we take all those combined, the grand total is $63,582 and change.
Councilwoman Kerr, are we close?
I think we should be able to get something, maybe a van,
It
I'm not so
ranged
sure
with-
about a bus.
It ranged from, I thought I submitted that, 62,000 to 72,000. It was meaning Ralph Jasanowski got estimates from 4 different places. So, but we also plan on selling the old bus once we are in receipt of the new bus. And they did say that, they can look into a van, but it might be, depending upon the number of seats, that might be an issue.
I have.
More limited.
I think later on this month, I have the HUD meeting at the county with the CDBG grant included. So I'll have a better estimate on how much money we'll be getting for the senior center this year.
Okay.
As well. It's a Saturday towards the end of the month, I
Yes.
think. I'll attend that and maybe we can,
Was that
get a
included?
little bit
That'd
more
be-
money for the seniors
Sure.
as well.
Okay, wonderful.
Just a little comment, being that maybe this is a stretch, but I'm gonna pitch the idea anyway. Seniors use the bus for other things besides just doctor appointments and things. A lot of the senior recreation and things go through that also. Would this be something that we could consider approaching the county to get some funds for? Maybe in the recreation grant area?
We can ask.
I mean, they could always say no.
I'm
so
not
it-
sure.
It doesn't cost anything to ask. It's worth a shot. So, anything else on the bus? Councilwoman, anything else?
Well, they did express the fact that they're not using it as much, but more people are hesitant in using it, and that's the reason. And if they do purchase a new bus, they won't be able to use the vehicle like they've been presently using, because of the issues that it has. It's very bumpy. And, when you're not 100%, you're not feeling well, bumps matter. I mean, I know I've done that same, going across states, and you're tired, and you're more sensitive to the bumps and there's some issues in the back rear, so they would like to upgrade. I know of a lot of other towns, they do it every 5 years. Speaking to them, sometimes there's a 5810 grant, but it takes a while to get, sometimes years. But I've spoken to other people, and I think it's time. It's 2005. Another year or two, we're going to have to purchase it anyway, since we do have most of the funding, and maybe Councilman Ligotti can reach out and get further, or Denise with the county. I think it'd be a really beneficial thing to the seniors.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I'm going to do a little bit of bad news on you right now. I did a little research knowing that this was going to come up on discussion today, and I've gone to the HUD meetings for the past, probably 6 years. I've been a representative for Milltown. And unfortunately, President Trump's 2018 budget calls for a reduction of New Jersey of about $270 million towards New Jersey. And then the Community Block Development Grant is being cut by $81.2 million. I don't think we're going to get the same kind of money we've gotten over the last 6 years that I've been doing it. So if we could look into maybe other ways, I think that fund is going to take a hit starting 2018 for us in Milltown and the senior center due to that, the budget for the national budget that Mr. Trump has going. But Yeah, that's the only bad news I have, is that in the future, we're not going to get the kind of money we've been getting.
Yeah, I think,
So-
I agree. I think we're going to have to get a little creative with this in order to get where we want to be, if we want to protect those funds that already exist.
Right.
So, again, it might be something that we,
Would be good if we could do something creative, because I would hate to deplete all those funds and then we're not getting enough money, and then they may need something else and we don't have the money anymore. That's my only scary, part about it is, don't go down to nothing,
I would
then we
agree.
can't get them anything.
Well, I did reach out to the county to see if, like sometimes municipalities will update their buses, but there was nothing available, they hadn't heard anything, and, I have tried with our zoning officer who looks at Gov Deals to see if there's anything newer model, so he has been looking out for us as well.
just for the information of the council, I don't know if you have the report that the councilwoman has referred to that she got from the mechanic. But basically, what it comes down to is, it's a 16-seat bus. I'm sure you've all seen the bus. Accommodates a wheelchair. The fuel tank is beginning to rot away, will need to be replaced, which isn't a big deal, but other things are starting, like the floor itself is beginning to rot away, body cross members rotting away, the side of the bus is rotting away actually from the inside, although it runs fine.
Despite all.
It sounds like my last medical report.
Fred Flintstone, actually.
So I think it's something that definitely, that I would deem is something we should definitely look to do, and I do agree with the councilman that looking for other ways of financing might not be a bad idea, but again, we're going to have to leave that to our financial mind.
Sure.
And find out what the possibilities might be.
Can you purchase through KPN and the other one that we joined or approved last time?
The national cooperatives that we join them and become a member, but depending on, it's each contract and each vendor and each purchase is separate. So you have to review those documents to make sure they're procured within our laws, meet certain advertising requirements. It's not the same as a New Jersey state contract where anything that's on that, well, as long as it's allowed for a municipal agency to buy it under New Jersey state contract that you can. It's not the same when you use a national cooperative. Okay. You have to be a member, and then after that, every time you make a purchase, you have to make sure that that vendor and that contract was procured in a way that meets our requirements.
Okay.
So it's a maybe. It's really the only answer I can have on that.
Thank
Maybe
you.
a state contract vendor, though, that we don't know about. I mean, that's how we purchased this bus.
Right.
It was through state contract, so.
There are state contracts that sell
Should we cement
vehicles.
it?
That's how we
Okay.
purchase our police vehicles and
Right.
things like that. So you may have a contract that has that on
Yeah,
there.
we'll look into it.
Thank you.
Anything else on that matter? Okay, seeing none. Discussion of sports lighting on Borough Park. There was a meeting that was held, I believe, last week.
Monday, this past Monday.
And can we get a little update on what's going on?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, at the last meeting, we were asked to provide some budget estimates for the cost of the lighting in the field. Tonight, I understand that as a result of the last meeting, we're asked to come back with more detail to go over what and how we arrived at our estimate. Let me just take this from the beginning because there's quite a bit that went into getting to the numbers, and we want to make sure everybody's aware of how they were created. Typically, what happens with these types of projects is they're done by most municipalities. At times, though, private entities can call the lighting manufacturers and get prices. It appears that, based upon the conversation we've had with Musco, who's a reputable lighting manufacturer and who we've used several times, probably the first time 25 years ago, they provided numbers to the Little League that basically were numbers that weren't necessarily public bid numbers. They were numbers as if the Little League was going to go purchase the lights themselves. Now, in other states, Little Leagues, some have status as if they're private entities. And there may be a couple of those in New Jersey, but I'm not sure of any. Basically, those entities then could go out and purchase these lights without a public bid. But in your case, since the borough owns the land and the fields, that typically these are public bid numbers. Unfortunately, when the numbers were given to the Little League, they were numbers as if they were a private entity, so that weren't bid numbers. Not uncommon, but that's how these projects start, their initial budget numbers, and in there were certain conditions. They said, well, this depends on the soils being consistent, and you need to come up with an accurate plan. Remember, the lighting levels on these fields are critical. In other words, when you set your poles and you figure how many lights you have, you need a scaled drawing, because if the lighting levels aren't the proper requirements, then someone could actually get hurt out there, and there could be litigation brought against the borough, and I'm going to be an attorney, but just from our experience. So as a result, there's things that they discounted in the estimate, and including the public bid process. So what we have done is to try and build the budget estimates so that we took care of all contingencies, which is typical of what we do with your projects. Unfortunately, though, it raised the number up and surprised all of us, including us at CME. We had a bad experience recently with a project in Bergen County where the lighting required significant supports, which with piles and pile caps down. I think one or two of the piles were 100 feet down by the time we got solid earth. Unfortunately, this part of the borough, as I look back and from folks that are been around Milltown longer than us, that area was filled in. Much of it was a bog at one time. And we are concerned that you may have soils that are not typical of what the Musco company would normally estimate. They basically base their estimates on soils that are consistent with a gravel field, which doesn't always exist in here in all cases. So our numbers included the cost of special foundations, all of which we don't really know until we get out there. And typically, in an effort to speed time, what most municipalities do today, and it also saves on the cost of preparing bid documents and bid phase services and all the things that comes in with that, is that these co-ops are used effectively. And we went to Musco and said, listen, can you handle the whole thing with your co-op? And they said, certainly, and that number then was put together. So the breakdown is as follows, and I'll go through it one by one. Musco's raw cost for lighting is $180,000. Not far from what was originally given to the Little League. And what must be added to that is the site work cost, and that's basically once you have an electrical design, which is not included in their co-op, there has to be a certain amount of junction boxes, conduit, an electric panel. There needs to be a transformer that takes the power from 4160 down to something that's usable by the Musco lights, which I think is 480. And those things are built into the site work cost, and that's about $110,000. The special foundations were approximately $30,000 for each pole. There's 4 poles, and that results in $120,000. So when you add all those up, and this is absent soft costs, it comes to $410,000. Now, how do we get this closer to reality, and what could or could not happen? Because right now we just don't know. What Musco agreed to do is to include in their cost the cost to do a geotechnical evaluation and also the structural design, all of which is intended to try and make this project move faster and cut down some of your outside soft costs. But until the foundation analysis or the geotech analysis is done, we're concerned about taking that number out of the estimate because it could be reality if you need piles or some kind of special foundation. These poles are set to go 60 or 70 feet high. There's a significant amount of weight that sits on top of the pole, and it basically results in air resistance. And obviously, we don't want to see a pole fall on anybody or the pole lean at some point. So until the geotechnical work is done and the structural design is done, it's hard to go through and basically come up with the exact number. Usually what we do is we put a budget number together, and then that's looked at as, not your worst case, is not the worst case scenario, but somewhere between what's reasonable and what we're hoping for. If it turns out that the soils are fine and for whatever reason, the fill that was placed in there years and years ago was solid, then the number comes down to about $290,000, which is much more closer to what I think everybody expected. So I think that the next phase may be to start looking at the geotech. Now, we certainly can do that for you. We were hoping that this could all be packaged and basically done by Musco as a turnkey for you, thereby trying to speed the project up and get the poles in as soon as possible. But if it turns out that you want us to, or you want to hire some other geotechnical firm to go through and do that, it's certainly within your purview. And that will actually bring the cost down closer to what I think everybody originally envisioned. If it turns out the geotechnical evaluation discloses that the soils are as bad as we're concerned they may be, then it becomes the next step. You design a foundation that deals with the pole and the wind loads and things like that. Remember, too, that these poles are not necessarily governed by your borough codes. These are codes, national codes and state codes. There's a large wind resistance up there at 70 feet, and the resistance to that load has to be handled by the foundation. So that's in a way an explanation to try and give folks an idea why the number escalated. We obviously are hoping that the number is less. We will do everything we can to get it less. These aren't final numbers, they're simply budget numbers in an effort to try and give you some comfort level that you've got things covered and you're not going to embark on a project and find out that the cost is $100,000 under what it could be.
Now, that was the one aspect. Now, I understand there was another aspect that had to do with a landing zone. Did you guys get any work on that? There was a letter that was at the meeting from our Office of Emergency Management that discussed that the area at the park is a landing zone for a helicopter. And I guess it's been that way for the past 15, 20 years. I did see the letter. The letter said that this is something that has been existing for quite a while. However, it doesn't mean that the project can't go on. I think what they're looking for is a review to see the geometrics of how a layout would be. And did we get any feedback from them at this point in time?
What would have to happen is you'd have to probably contact FAA. Okay, that'd be my guess, and go through with them. Now, we've made applications to FAA before. Your water storage tank, we made an application for it because there's they're in the flight path potentially along the turnpike. So it's probably a simple application to them, show them that what's fortunate in this case is your lights are on the outer edges of the field, as you said, Mayor. And probably if you were going to land a helicopter that's in the center of the field, it probably doesn't obstruct it. But I don't want to speak for the FAA. You'd have to go through and talk about that. We were unaware that it was an FAA landing site. It's one thing I didn't know.
Yeah. Okay, so that's again, that isn't something that predicates that this is a no-go. It's just something that we have to overcome or come up with a plan B, I would guess. So
yeah, I mean, with the water tank, when you're in that zone and at that height, there basically is a light put on it. So maybe it's as simple as a warning light.
Okay.
But we can certainly go into that further if that's what you desire.
All right. Anything else on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. People have reached out to me and they had expressed, as much as we all enjoy the success of the Little League at putting lights in Field 2, where it is a landing zone, they also expressed at the meeting that Albert Avenue could be another option. In addition, we all have to look at all the residents. And is this a valid question for the residents to say yes or no, as opposed to just the council voting on this and voting yes to it, to get further feedback?
Like a referendum, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, but I would think that would be, because this includes all residents, it's not just us up here or a small group. And like I said, we all enjoy the success of the Little League, but also there's other things needed in this town that need to be addressed. The whole playground doesn't have to be revamped and done, but there's repairs that are needed, things that need to be replaced. We have still ongoing, other things within the town that need to be addressed. And with the way the budget is, I always hear there's no money, no money. It's a great opportunity, but also we have to match it by 50%. So that's my concern, and I'm thinking this should be addressed and presented to all residents, not just a small few.
Well, a referendum right now would require a special election unless we waited until the general election. So if we did that, the borough would incur the cost of a special election at this time because it cannot be at the primary. So that is a question that you would have to discuss because that's creating mail-in ballots, the machine rental notification. There's quite a bit of an expense for a special election. If you wanted to put it on to the general election, that's something that can be discussed. Again, all this has to go by resolution to the council in order for a referendum to go through. Again, the council has the right to determine if they want a referendum. Now, you can do binding or non-binding. That would be a decision by resolution. But again, if you do it now, you are incurring the cost of a special election. If you don't want to incur the cost of a special election, you're moving forward and waiting for this to be something that we discuss and determine until November. So those are when you're talking about referendum, you can do unofficial surveys and polls if you'd like. You can have public hearings on it outside of having an official referendum, especially if you're opting for something that's non-binding to gain a perspective of your residents. But when you're talking about an actual referendum, your options are fairly limited.
Okay.
I would think at this point, I mean, we see that there's a hurdle that has to be overcome, and that would be the landing zone. Mike,
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question? If the landing zone winds up being an issue, couldn't we ask OEM or the FAA if Albert Avenue is a viable secondary landing zone with the soccer fields and no lights there? Or, would that be an option?
That's exactly where I was going with this, is the first thing we have to do is find out what the parameters are. I know what makes that landing zone such a sweet spot for emergency management, and number one is the size of Violet Terrace. It's a big, wide, open street. There's no houses near it. It's kind of by itself. Also, too, the size of the parking lot that is adjacent to the ball fields, too. This way, if there's any emergency vehicles or things, it's a lot easier getting in and out. And just the fact that there's not houses within 100 or 2 feet. But again, perhaps I was going to say, Mike, if we could get a meeting with our Office of Emergency Management, and we can make sure that if there's any kind of information that they can bring up. I know I think it falls under the New Jersey State Police because it's generally their helicopters, Ron, right?
State Police Aviation Unit.
Okay.
So perhaps we can reach out to them, find out everything. The thing in my mind would be is if you can get beyond that, then you know a little bit more financially where you're going to go. So to start talking numbers without getting past that first, we might find that this is the only place. Maybe if they want to continue with lights, they would have to do them at Albert Park. I don't know. But I just want this process to continue, find the answers, and then the council can make their decision on how they want to progress. But I think a meeting to get through that point is probably the most important.
Okay. We'll set it up.
And then, of course, they have to start thinking, dollars and cents. But I don't see where we get to the real dollars and cents until we really know, is that going to be the spot, or do we have to try to go somewhere else? It might be that trying to go to Albert Avenue with lights might, in the long run, be back down to that $250,000 figure or whatever, and it might make the project a little more financially digestible by the county. By the council. So there's that too. So just trying to find a little common ground, a way to work through this, and then it's just going to all boil down in the end to dollars and cents. But it seems we wouldn't be doing our due diligence unless we really figured out what the site was going to be. And that's my 2 cents. Anything else?
Are the lights, I thought they were along the outside. They're not in the middle of the field, are they?
No, they're exactly right. They're along the 2 foul lines. That's right.
Which is where the Major League field is anyway, so I don't, it's not right in the middle of the field.
Right. I'm not going to guess because I'm not an expert.
Right.
It was just told to me, and, I just have to make sure that we don't hurt ourselves anyway when it comes to our emergency response.
I just had one question for Mike. Was any of the geo survey done when they put the lights on the Major League field now?
We're not sure, and it's obviously questioned. We had the same
How long
question.
ago was that done, do you know?
I don't know. That's, I don't know.
Those lights were put up, I think, in the mid to late 90s.
Okay.
I believe. And, you got to remember, too, and Eric, you could correct me, I think the Little League field's been there 50-some years?
1953.
Okay, so it's been there since 1953. It's been there a long time. So that ground, regardless of when it was put there, I'm sure that was fill too in its day. I think where the question about the fill comes in is that it's local lore that the soil that was put where the baseball fields are was the dredgings of the Lawrence Brook behind Borough Hall back in the, I guess, early 70s, and it was just placed there. And that's, remember when the Rangers Athletic Club was just getting together, and they wanted a football field. Before that, they were playing Pop Warner football at Michelin Field. So they went down, put the spoils there, spread it out, and grew grass. I think there's also a watering system in that field too, and some drainage. But the thing that really springs in my mind is when we have a rain and the circus comes to town, or we have 4th of July, and the trucks pull out there and they sink right in the mud. So that's where kind of the alarm bell went off in my mind. I remember the history of that, and that's why we really have to be careful with, as Mike was saying, you're putting a lot of wind resistance up on a pole 80 feet blowing around. It could be a problem, so we need to make sure that we do it right. So, anyone else?
Just a question. Does the letter reflect how many times in the last 15 years the helicopters landed there?
No, it didn't.
Oh.
But, it's like you have a fire truck. You hope they never use the thing. And the cops have guns, and you hope they never use them. So you can't really say, well, we haven't used it yet or often, so we don't need it. That's what I'm saying. This isn't looking to predicate the destruction of this thing, but there's ways to make it all fit, and hopefully the council will work to see if it can fit.
Mr. Mayor, I still, the engineering and geotech and stuff aside, I keep going back to what Councilwoman Kerber said, was do the residents overall really want this project? Over the past couple of weeks, I've been confronted by several saying, how much is the Little League putting towards the project? And why does it all have to fall on the borough? And when those lights are installed, who has access to them? Who's allowed to turn them on? Does that mean that that field's going to be strictly for Little League, or can my kids finally run around there and play one of the times when baseball rules Borough Park? And I have to say I agree with those residents, and while I commend the Little League for bringing this forward and for trying to improve, I have a hard time swallowing, $20,000 when I look at the budget that we're under, trying to improve our water system, electric system, our roadways, our sidewalks, the tree removals. Great motion. I just think the timing's all wrong. So that's my piece on it.
Anyone else? Okay, being nothing else, I guess if we could reach out to Office of Emergency Management, find if we can find a way through that, and progress from there.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Miscellaneous engineering items.
Nothing else to report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Wow, you're kidding. All right, audience comments. When recognized, please state your name and address for the record. As a reminder, the audience comments are for things that were discussed in the agenda meeting only. Please, no freelancing. With that, I will open audience comments.
Randy Riley, 58 Oaks. I apologize. I missed the last meeting, so I have a couple questions on some numbers, if that's all right. I guess, may I address Denise with the question? Is that all right?
Sure.
What is, I'm sorry.
They're from the last meeting.
Oh.
Do you
all
want
right.
to stay with what's on just the agenda, and I will...
Well, it ties to the Little League. I have a question about
Oh,
the money.
sorry.
That's okay. What was the total dollar amount of the grant that was given, or that the borough was allowed to take part in for that?
We haven't really come to a conclusion yet. It's a 50% match, and it's a grant by the, by Middlesex County. Okay, we're not exactly sure what council will decide of how much to apply for and for what purpose.
Is there a maximum they can apply, that, and ideally the 400,000, how much of that is possibly could be covered by the county?
I think it's about 1.5 million.
No, but
What
the county said, the county application is for 50%
Okay.
of park improvements. So 50% of the projects that are proposed is what they would fund up
Right.
to.
Okay.
And
So-
we would pay the balance.
And
other-
the balance then
And we
falls
would
onto
pay
the
the
borough?
balance.
Thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close audience comments, and I will accept a motion for adjournment.
So be it.
Second.
I have a motion by Council President Dixon, seconded by Councilwoman Kerber, that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. We will adjourn for about, I'll tell you what, let's get back to business at 8 o'clock. Ready to go.
3. Waynesville.
Ray? Good evening. The March 12th, 2018 meeting of the Milltown Borough Council will now come to order. Will the clerk please call roll?
Council President Dixon?
Present.
Councilman Farkas?
Here.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Present.
Councilman Legati?
Here.
Councilwoman Mayer?
Here.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Present.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 present.
Thank you. Will the clerk please read the meeting statement?
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this regular business meeting of the Borough Council was provided by the adoption of a resolution and the posting, filing, and forwarding of a copy of the same to the official borough newspapers, Home News Tribune, and Star Ledger Publishing Companies on February 20th, 2018. Public participation in this meeting will be permitted during public hearings and after the agenda of scheduled matters has been completed.
Thank you. Please rise for a moment of silent prayer, followed by a salute to our nation's flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. At this time, I wish to issue the following mayoral proclamations. First is the declaring of the week of March 28th through 24th, 2018, National Poison Prevention Week in New Jersey. I could go through this whole thing and read it, but you know what? I think what we're going to do is, why don't we get this over to the website?
Okay.
Have this put on the website, and I would ask people in town to please take the time to read the proclamation. It's very informative and will give you some great information that I know everyone isn't sitting at home right now with a pencil waiting for me to read this thing for the next 25 minutes. So please take the time to look at the proclamation. The second proclamation this evening is declaring April Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month and the observance of Denim Day are intended to draw attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and has public health implications for every community member of Middlesex County, including lifelong mental health impact. And whereas sexual assault, sexual abuse, and sexual harassment greatly impact our community, as the statistics indicate, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused before age 18, with many more experiencing other types of sexual violence in their adult life. And whereas prevention is possible, so we must work together to educate our community about what can be done to stop sexual violence while supporting survivors. And whereas staff and volunteers of anti-violence and prevention programs in Middlesex County, including the Middlesex County Center for Empowerment and Sexual Violence Prevention Coalition, encourage every person to speak out when witnessing acts of violence, however small, and to challenge the social norms that continue to perpetuate a culture of violence. And whereas the New Jersey Sex Crimes Officers Association and the Middlesex County Sex Crimes Liaison Officers, in connection with the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office, are dedicated to ensuring the effective investigation and prosecution of sex crimes in our community through interagency collaboration and training. And whereas with leadership, dedication, and encouragement, there is compelling evidence that we can be successful in reducing sexual violence in Middlesex County through increased awareness, prevention, education focused on increasing gender equity, healthy relationships, and bystander intervention, and holding perpetrators who commit acts of violence responsible for their actions. And whereas through the month of April, Middlesex County strongly supports the efforts of national, state, and local partners and every citizen to actively engage in public and private efforts, including conversations about what sexual violence is, how to prevent it, how to help survivors connect with services, and how every segment of our society can work together to better address sexual violence. Now therefore I, Eric A. Stieber, Mayor of the Borough of Milltown, do hereby declare April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month for the year 2018 and proclaim that we join anti-sexual violence advocates and support service programs in the belief that all community must be part of the solution to end sexual violence and encourage the observation of Denim Day on Wednesday, April 25th, 2018. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the Borough of Milltown to be affixed this 12th day of March, 2018. So, thank you, and I hope people put some thought into this, and please be supportive of any groups that you possibly can. Okay, next on the agenda is consideration of minutes from the February 6th, 2018 special council meeting. You've had the opportunity to read the minutes of the meeting. What is your pleasure?
Go ahead.
I move that these minutes be approved as typed.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, seconded by Council President Dixon, that the minutes be received and accepted as typed. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. My title is Councilwoman.
Oh, did I put you?
And it says January 16th in front of us right now.
I
So is
added
that-
January 16th minutes. I thought
Okay.
I was going to ask you to do those
Gotcha.
too. The new agenda does have January 16th minutes.
Yeah,
I
I'll
think-
go
Okay.
back to them.
Oh, yeah, I figured.
Right now, we're dealing with February 6th.
But that's
So-
okay, it's also wrong on.
I will double, I'm really sorry. That's a typo. I will change the minutes to reflect
Thank
that.
Anyone else? Will the clerk please call roll?
Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer?
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. Okay, next we have consideration of the minutes of the January 16th, 2018 Borough Council meeting. You've had the opportunity to read the minutes. What is your pleasure?
I move that the minutes be approved as typed.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Legati, seconded by Councilwoman Mayer, that the minutes of the January 16th, 2018 Borough Council meetings are received and filed as typed. Is there any discussion?
Again, Mr. Mayor, just want to update my title, that's all, on the minutes.
So
I'll update them on all of them, I promise. I apologize for that.
Anyone else? Will the clerk please call roll?
Council President Dixon.
Aye.
Councilman Farkas.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Aye.
Councilman Legati.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. Okay, next we have the minutes of the February 12th, 2018 Borough Council meeting. You've had the opportunity to read the minutes. What is your pleasure?
I move that the minutes be approved as typed.
I second.
I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, seconded by Councilwoman Kerber, that the minutes are received and filed as typed. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call roll?
Council President Dixon.
Aye.
Councilman Farkas.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Aye.
Councilman Legati.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. Now, I still owe you February 26th, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You've had the opportunity to read the minutes of the February 26th, 2018 Borough Council meeting. What is your pleasure?
I move that the minutes be approved as typed.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Legati, seconded by Councilwoman Mayer, that the minutes are received and filed as typed. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Dixon.
Aye.
Councilman Farkas.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Aye.
Councilman Legati.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. Okay, next on the agenda is public hearing. Tonight we have a public hearing scheduled for ordinance number 18-1454. The ordinance has been published according to law. Copies have been available to the public prior to this evening's meetings. I'd ask anyone wishing to speak in favor or against the ordinance, when recognized, please clearly state your name and address for the record. With that, will the clerk please read ordinance number 18-1454 by title?
An ordinance of the Borough of Milltown, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 8 of the Borough Code of the Borough of Milltown entitled School Age Child Care Program.
Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing. Does anyone have something they wish to say for or against this ordinance? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask the council for their consideration.
Move that this ordinance be adopted on second and final reading and published according to law.
Second.
I have a motion by Council President Dixon, seconded by Councilman Revelinsky, that the ordinance be adopted on second and final reading and published according to law. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call roll?
Council President Dixon.
Aye.
Councilman Farkas.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Aye.
Councilman Legati.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. Okay, next we have audience comments and questions on resolutions and bills and claims that are listed on the agenda. If you have any comments or questions, please use the microphone in the center of the room. Give your name and address for the record when recognized. Remember, comments and questions are limited to the resolutions and the bills and claims listed on this evening's agenda. With that, I will open audience comment. Seeing none, I will close audience comments. Next on the agenda is bills and claims. Will the clerk please read Resolution 18-079 by title?
Authorizing the payment of bills, claims, and statements against the Borough of Milltown in the total amount of, $7,746,592.43.
Okay, you've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
Move that this resolution be adopted.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, seconded by Council President Dixon, that the resolution is adopted. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call roll?
Council President Dixon.
Aye.
Councilman Farkas.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Aye.
Councilman Legati.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. Okay, next we have reports of standing committees and introduction of resolutions. A consent resolution has been prepared to cover the 9 resolutions listed on this evening's agenda. If any member of the council would like any of the resolutions acted upon individually, please give me the number of the resolution and it will be pulled from the consent resolution.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, 18-086.
And I have a question about 18-089.
Okay, and 089. Okay. Any others? Okay. At this time, I will ask the clerk to read the consent resolution, which will cover all resolutions listed except for 18-086 and 18-089, which will be acted on individually. Will the clerk please read the consent resolution?
Whereas pursuant to the rules of council, the council may establish a consent agenda for any regular special meeting, and whereas Borough Clerk has posted a consent agenda for this meeting. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, that the consent agenda previously prepared by the Borough Clerk be approved without the necessity of having the individual resolutions read by the Borough Clerk.
Okay, you've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
I make a motion that this resolution be adopted.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Legati, seconded by Councilman Revelinsky. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer?
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. Will the clerk please read Resolution 18-086 by title, please?
Authorization to execute an interlocal agreement with Middlesex County for milling, resurfacing, and striping of municipal roads.
Okay, you've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
Move that this resolution be adopted.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Legati, that the resolution is adopted. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point out, our DPW Supervisor, Ralph Jazanowski, from 2015 to the end of last year, he was able to secure with the county, with his contacts, the milling and paving of 3 roads. He worked tirelessly every so often to work with the county to reach this level. And there was a hold-off because of the interlocal agreement. And I'm thankful for the county to finally update their local agreement. And Ralph, of course, getting this accomplished. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew, he worked tirelessly, every few months to try and touch base. And the one time I was in his office, he called right then and there, and they proceeded to put this into the plan and get this accomplished for this year. So I thank the county, I thank Ralph, and I appreciate their efforts.
Mr. Mayor, I'd also like to thank Councilman Farkas for his influence in this as well. He made numerous phone calls to the county to get this approved, and his effort in this was very commendable as well.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank the rest of council in advance in hopes that they pass this, because I think milling and paving is absolutely important. And we looked into these roads. Water mains on these roads look like they're in good shape. So we can move forward with milling and paving and not have to worry about digging them up next year, knock on wood.
Anyone else? I have a silly question for the clerk and the business administrator. Last year, we were also on a list to have some roads milled and paved by the county, and then it was brought to our attention that they weren't going to because there was some verbiage in the contracts that we have with them. What was corrected between then and now?
I don't have a copy of the original contract that was, because it had gotten to the point, it was up for that, and then we never got the documents to move forward with, I think it was last October, to move forward with that agreement because they had pulled it saying that the freeholders wanted to change it. I only have the current agreement that we're adopting tonight.
Okay, we can go ahead and vote on this thing this evening. However, could I get a compare and contrast of the two?
I can reach out to the
I want
county
to
to see
know
if there's
exactly
any.
what was the problem last year. This way we know we never have that problem again.
I will request it from the county.
Thank you. With that, will the clerk please call the roll?
Writing too many things, sorry. Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer?
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. Will the clerk please read Resolution 18-089 by title, please?
Resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown granting permission to 4-H Lost Teens Exploring the East to host an overnight campout at Albert Avenue Park, April 28th to April 29th.
Okay, you've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
I move that this resolution be adopted.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, seconded by Council President Dixon, that the resolution is adopted. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I asked to have this pulled just because I had a couple questions. First of all, I couldn't find in Dropbox exactly what is the Lost Teens? I didn't see, was there information about why they requested to be in Milltown? Because I don't know, we don't have a 4-H here.
The only thing that we received is a letter that the Recreation Department forwarded to us, which was in Dropbox. They're just requesting it it's a camp out, a tent, and they wanted to use Albert Avenue.
Did they have an estimate of how many people?
No, that was not included in the letter.
And then my main question was, will there be borough assets that will have to be devoted to that? Will there have to be extra police presence during that night, or fire on, because I see they're having campfires.
As part of the resolution, they are required to get any required permits or inspections completed, which would include, even for tent, the fire marshal must be notified for that. So it is in their approvals that they have to go through the county and any offices pertinent to them to get those requirements. As far as the rec department reviewed the request and felt that it was satisfactory to put through to council. In the past, additional campouts have not required police presence or...
So we don't know if it's 50, 100, 200, we have no idea?
It wasn't stated in the letter. I don't know if the Recreation Department gained additional information in their review of it.
Is there in this application, is there a certificate of insurance for this that they provide us as well?
They didn't, at this time, as far as I'm aware with the rec department, they did not complete the application. They sent a letter requesting it, which was given to the rec department for their review, and then our rec director forwards it to me to put on the council as a resolution for approval. Additional information she may require, whether, I don't know, do you get certificates of insurance with the park applications?
Not usually, no.
Is there any way we can get more information before we...
You can probably table it, it's not till the end of April.
And the amount of,
Saying
an
any
estimate on
request additional
people and
information.
things along those lines, if we're going to need...
I know that on the
police?
rec application for the park, she would get that, and I asked if that was present, and she said that she doesn't get those applications until approval is granted.
Isn't that the cart before the horse?
Yeah, if there's any...
Sorry, thinking out loud.
No, I understand, I
question-
understand, that's why we asked for the review by the department, so I don't know if she has that information. Outside of giving it to us, I can only say what my correspondence was, and...
Yeah, because we did the same thing last year with the application for a block party. It was submit the application first, we get an idea, we pass it around to the chiefs, find out from DPW if it's okay, and then, if everyone blesses it, then, we really have no reason not to. Given that this is 4-H and it's a camp out, the only other one I can think of that occurs annually is for the Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts. Similarly, do they provide insurance? Do they provide anything like that?
Since the block parties are in my office, so I could answer more questions about that. This is specific to the Recreation Department. What she obtains in her applications, I don't know the answer to that. I just know what's provided to me for the resolution. So I know with the Boy Scouts, normally that letter does not say how many kids there are, and it does not say if there's insurance provided. So if we want to add that to requirements for when they're requesting this, I have no problem with that. It's just precedent says that that's not something that they've included, so.
Just curious. Councilman
Right.
Farkas, do you happen to know with rec?
I don't, but I believe that these girls have done this before. I believe they used to be the Girl Scouts, and they might have either aged out or left the Girl Scout troop and started their own troop. I'm not sure about that, but I recognize the name on the letter, the application letter. So I know they've done it before, and I don't think it was an issue.
Yes, he's
I didn't
correct.
even know if they were local.
Well, they
They're
did come...
local.
Yeah, they're local. They came to the cleanups, and exactly what Councilman Farkas said, they aged out, and now they're with the 4-H, so. And so does some of the advisors live in town.
Anyone else?
The only thing, if I could, I would like to see in the future, and we've done this before and we've gotten away from it, when requests like this come in, it should go to the chief of police and it should go to recreation, who say that there has been no problem in the past, or that particular evening there's 6 other things going on in town, and we don't think it's a good idea.
This letter did go to Recreation. This was put forth to the Recreation Director for her review and advisement. So she reviewed it and submitted it for the resolution. And again, I know on the park application on that, I do know that it's copied to Public Works and the chief. Again, I believe her process from her email is that she gets council approval before they do the application, because I believe there's a fee associated with the park application. I think that's part of the reason why. And at that point, it would go to those departments. So again, that might be something that would be discussed with the rec director for her process to change slightly. Block parties are a little bit different since we don't charge for that, that they fill out the application and I can get through each department because there's not a cost incurred if for some reason they were denied. And I don't know if that's something that would be a different discussion, but that's, I think, why there's a difference in process.
So can I ask a question?
Okay.
I got a little bit enlightened that I now know it could be, or it's more than likely, Girl Scouts that have aged out, and I'm okay with that, but if we approve it tonight, and let's say the chief says, I got a problem with this, can we revisit it?
That's why it should be approved before it comes to us, by all the department heads. Then we know that they approved it and there's no problem.
I understand that, but I'm wondering if we approve it, can we revisit it if one of our, like the police chief or Ralph has an issue with it?
I would say that you could amend the resolution to say approval granted upon review and advisement of approval by the departments, the chief of police, public works, to make sure that the resolution already has a stipulation that they have to have their permit. So if for some reason the county fire marshal said no go, they wouldn't be able to operate because they wouldn't have the permits to do so.
So if I did something and if all of council would...
Are you in a current concurrent with that?
Yes, you can make this resolution, you can modify it on the floor, subject to the approval of the chief of police. But just going forward, you might be mindful to have it as a process that you get approvals before they come to the floor. But given the time of this and it's on the floor already, you can, as I say, modify it to make it subject to the approval of the chief of police and whatever other departments are necessary for this. Okay.
All right, so,
We had a
Mr.
motion
Mayor?
on the floor. We had a motion on the floor, so we're looking to change that motion. There would be you would propose modified language, and then you would have a motion and second to adopt the resolution as modified.
Okay, so if I make a motion that the resolution be amended to reflect the following changes.
Yes.
That the chief of police approve it, the director of public works approve it, and it be adopted after that.
No, it would be adopted subject to the approval.
Subject to that.
So therefore, if you do not get approval tomorrow or whenever from the chief of police or whatever department head, then at that time, it will have been as though it was rejected. You're approving it subject to final approval by chief of police.
Is everybody comfortable with that or no?
Did you mean to also add completion of the application?
Okay, I'm going to do it again.
Well, that part's in there already. The part's in there that they are required to complete any application and inspection required for them. So that's already in the resolution. It would just be subject to the approval of Chief of Police and Department of Public Works, correct?
Correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry.
Okay, we had a
Amendment.
amending motion by Councilman Legati, an amending second by Councilwoman Mayer, that the resolution is adopted. Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Dixon.
Aye.
Councilman Farkas.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Aye.
Councilman Legati.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. Okay, next on the agenda, we move to the report of the Department of Finance, Administration and Planning, chaired by Council President Ron Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier this evening, we had another budget meeting. We have another one scheduled for later this week. We're still in the process of putting the 2018 budget together. Hopefully, we could bring it before the council during the month of April, which we would like to do, but we are still trying to iron out several things. Going over the electric, and water and sewer rates, not rates, but delinquent payers. As of 2017, with water and sewer, there are a total of 201 people in this town that owe us bills. 25 of them are over $1,000. And one example is a business in town, and again, nameless, but they owe us $7,411.46. That's water and sewer. These bills are going up for the April tax sale. So once those notifications go out, either the people come in and pay it, or they will be shut down. The electric, we have 249 individuals in this town who owe us money. Of those, 35 are over $1,000. And the same individual who owes, for the water rate, $7,000, owes $2,791. So together, it's $10,000. One individual owes this borough. And we're trying to put a budget together this year. That's not an easy, doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot when you're working with pennies in a budget. And lastly, I am pleased to announce that the Office of Emergency Management has applied for and has been granted an infrastructure mitigation grant, which is going to cover $162,000 towards the cost of the generators across the street for the firehouse and for the Department of Public Works building. So it's saving the town $162,000. Total estimated cost of those generators installation is $511,405. And that lowers that cost to $349,405. So it does save the borough $162,000. It is a grant. I have FEMA's letter. It's not something that we're thinking about doing. It's not something we're thinking about applying. This has been approved. We have FEMA's recommendation. We're going to be having meetings soon to do whatever we have to do to move forward with this. There are some qualifications here, but they're standard. Mike, you know them better than I do, the qualifications with a FEMA grant. Photograph this, photograph that, and show me where the serial numbers are. And that's it. And that is my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from the Department of Public Safety, chaired by Councilman Nick Ligotti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My first report is from the Milltown Municipal Alliance, a program made possible from a grant from the Governor's Council on Alcohol and Drug Abuse for protecting your family from alcohol and opiate addiction. April 16th, 2018, from 7 to 8:30 p.m., the Milltown Municipal Building Courtroom, 39 Washington Avenue. It's hosted by the Milltown Municipal Alliance and the Milltown Board of Health. It's presented by John K. Krieger of Krieger Consulting. We'll also put the flyer on Channel 15 and on the website. Last Friday, I attended March Madness. The Milltown Alliance has its annual PowerPoint presentation on underage drinking. There are 3 prizes that are given out. Second and third prize are donated by the Chamber of Commerce. First place prize is donated by the PBA Police Department here in Milltown. I'm happy to announce that third place went to Ava Williams, second place went to Emma Hayes, and first place of a Chromebook went to Allison Pierce. That's one down. Now, my Milltown Police Monthly Report. Between February 7, 2018 and March 5, 2018, police have answered 1,394 calls for service. The number includes, but not limited to, 911 and medical calls, traffic incidents, community outreach, walk-in reports, and public contacts. Police conducted a total of 462 motor vehicle stops, which include specific traffic details including cell phone, crosswalk, and seatbelt violation. 34 radar and multiple traffic calming details were conducted in various locations during this time period. Police responded to 19 motor vehicle accidents and made 25 arrests, which include theft, drugs, DWI, and warrant arrests. Police are currently investigating a gypsy paving scam. A traveling gypsy not licensed are overcharging for substandard material and not completing jobs as contracted. Residents are encouraged to make the attempt to validate your contractor's state license, insurance, and solicitor's permit prior to engaging any monies. I got to tell you, I heard a very heart-wrenching story of a senior in Milltown that got taken by this particular group, and everybody should, warn your neighbors. They'll just come knocking on your door, and they prey on the elderly and the seniors, and watch out for your seniors and give them a heads up if you can. Milltown Police encourage residents to remain vigilant in calling, reporting any suspicious activity and traffic concerns to the Milltown Police Department at 732-828-1100. Milltown Police Detective Bureau effectively executed a search warrant on residents where nearly $30,000 of Home Depot merchandise was identified and/or recovered. Police Department continues to maintain all mandated training requirements and continue to train and practice at higher standards in law enforcement. Police will continue strict enforcement of traffic laws, including speeding, cell phone use, and pedestrian crosswalks. Milltown Police Department is currently accepting applications for part-time public safety telecommunicators and crossing guards. Information is available through the police department and posted on within Borough Hall. Okay, that's the police report. Now, if you bear with me, I'll do the fire department for the month ending February 2018. Total number of calls, 11. Total number of training details, 3. Total number of work details, 4. Total number of meeting details, 1. Total number of incidents, 19. The Milltown Fire Department is always looking for new members. Please stop by either firehouse on Monday nights or go to the website milltownfire.org for details. The Milltown Fire Department held its annual banquet for members and guests. Members received service awards. Dan Knoll, 15 years. Well, there's a whole bunch of them. I'm not going to go through all of those. There we go. Vehicle maintenance. Engine 62 and the Chief Car 81 received their new striping. Preventative maintenance has been scheduled for all trucks. Minor adjustments and repairs have been performed. Building and grounds. The Main Street Firehouse experienced a severe leak in the bathrooms. Public Works addressed the issue quickly. Spring repairs listed, being prepared, and addressed general issues. I have to say, on Saturday, the 3 fire chiefs took time away from their families to accommodate me in a tour of both firehouses. I want to thank them both for spending the time with me, explaining a lot to me, showing me a lot of things. It's a big task what they're going to have to take on going forward, trying to combine 2 firehouses into one. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes to do that, but good luck with these on that. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from the Department of Utilities, chaired by Councilman Richard Revelinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to steer away from the usual report that we give with statistics on the work that was accomplished, and I'd like to thank our utility department personally. It wasn't easy this past week. Both Friday we had a nor'easter, and this past Wednesday we had a nor'easter. If you were affected, luckily I wasn't, but if you were affected in town, you noticed you lost power. And between our fire department, our police department, our DPW crews, and our utility department, they got us back up and running quick. Fire department was going through, cutting down limbs so the utility department can go through and do what they do best, reconnecting the wires. Notifying the residents, our EMT and rescue squad, they were on point. Our Office of Emergency Management down here did a bang-up job answering calls and making sure that we had priority lists. I went out around 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and these guys were not planning on any sleep. Emergency crews were called in to help us address the issues before those emergency crews were going to wind up elsewhere in the state, and we wouldn't be able to have them on hand. So special thanks to all you guys. You went above and beyond. In addition to that, we did have, as I mentioned, the power lines down, especially over at Janet Court, where last meeting, if you had paid attention, we had some questions regarding an LED light or street light that went in. We also did perform the usual tasks. The weekly water samples were taken, pole transfers were performed near Brook Drive at Zimmerman Court. And that's really it. Folks, please, at home, if you're watching, sign up for Nixle for the utility department report so you can be aware. If you see something, please let us know. Be patient. Not every issue requires immediate attention, but it is good for us to know because we can't drive around with our heads up in the sky or we might run into something. Please let us know if you have any issues. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from the Department of Public Works and Recycling.
Weigh in quickly on the utility portion?
Pardon me?
Are we allowed to weigh in, or that comes later?
That comes later.
All right, very good.
Next, we will hear from the Department of Public Works and Recycling, chaired by Councilwoman Dorianne Kerber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. DPW report for March 12th, 2018. Along with all regular curbside collections, DPW has the following. Bamboo has been removed and trucked off premises on the Schwinderman cabin. A door was also repaired at the site. Sinkholes were repaired on George Street and Washington Avenue. Road repairs took place on First Street. Pothole repair is ongoing and has taken place around town. Leaf pickup at Borough Pool has been completed. Prep work has begun at the baseball fields around town for the upcoming season. Rope and flag have been replaced on the senior building flagpole. A sink was also repaired at the senior center. Blinds were replaced in the senior director's office. Stormwater catch basin cleaning has begun and will be ongoing to comply with stormwater regulations. A catch basin has been repaired on Washington Avenue. DPW prepped for another winter storm. If you subscribe to Nixle for the borough information, please log into an update so that you can get Department of Public Works updates. Please check channel 15, milltownnewjersey.org for DPW updates. I attended the Middlesex County Water Resources Association meeting. The wastewater management plan, they have a proposed schedule now. They will go through each municipalities, and they'll be having meetings specifically with towns. What they did was, when they curated the wastewater management plan, they included all towns. It's up to the option for us to accept it. If we do, that's great, because then we won't have to do it ourselves. But they are going to be planning on reaching out to everyone. They will have this link on their website if you want to review it. It's many, many pages. And they will be meeting with the planning as well as the business administrator, and they haven't decided if they're going to meet with the engineering department or engineers of the towns yet. In addition, I attended the Sense meeting. That was last Tuesday, March 6th, from 7 to 9, and it was at the Edison Municipal Complex. We had a community liaison, Office of Public Affairs from the DEP, as well as the scene coordinator. Amazing that the work that they do at the US EPA. They provided a handout, which we're going to get electronically, so if the Environmental Commission is interested, or anyone, this is a Superfund. It's a community guide to EPA's Superfund program. It gives all details, breaks it all down, what they do in terms of remediation and certain aspects. Now, generally speaking, they don't really handle house calls, generally, but based upon certain situations, they do. For example, in Clifton, someone's grandfather had worked for GE, and they started renovations, and they were wondering what this liquid was. The silver liquid, it was actually mercury. So they eventually tore down the building and had to relocate these people who are artists and really bought this to do a wonderful thing in town, but they had to decontaminate it, and as well as the people. And you never know. People don't realize mercury is really a stress and a very difficult thing to work with. You don't want to touch it, you don't want to play with things. And there was another town where an 8-year-old was just playing with it and it broke. So the whole, like 3 or 4 families were involved. They do go, and it was outside, so they had to go and check into it. There's a lot of calls that they get that you wouldn't normally think that they handle. But I do have the card. If there's anything in town that happens, we can reach out immediately to make sure that they are on top of it. And they said, generally speaking, the EPA is on top of anything. If there's anything, like I mentioned to Ford Avenue, the spill that happened and everything was cleaned up and corrected and everything was fine. But anything related to that, they always check their calls. They always go out. So that was good to hear, that they do get on top of anything. If they're called, they check into it. There's been times where they people walked on trails. They said, what are these drums here for? Come to find out, it's high contamination. You know, they get the hazmat people out there to take care of it. So if you see something like that, any kind of containers, and you're not sure of it, really call. It's better to be safe than really sorry. It's you know, especially in New Jersey when we're a lot of chemicals in this state. So, and then that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from the Department of Environmental, Health, and Social Services, chaired by Councilwoman Trina Mayer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the highlights from the Environmental Commission meeting, the Green Team submitted an application for a PSE&G grant. They also have 2 rain gardens proposed. They are also proposing a charging station for electric hybrid cars, possibly in an area here at Borough Hall. There's an upcoming environmental fair. I don't have the date on that yet, but I'll update you at the next meeting. And then we also talked about the addition of an app called My Waste, which would have all of the DPW important dates, which will be free to all municipalities in 2019. We also had a discussion about the natural resources inventory, the current status and progress desired, which will help with sustainable journey grants and points. We also had quite a talk about steep slopes involving projects before the Planning and Zoning Board. Actually, Mike, we were going to invite you to a meeting because there are some discrepancies in the maps that we have, so perhaps you could help us out with that.
Certainly.
So I'll speak to you, after the meeting about that.
Thank you.
And also the maps of the slopes and streams are connected to an ANJEC grant. We also discussed the ramifications of the current application in front of the zoning board and the environmental repercussions of that. They also have had, and this has been in a couple meetings, a question for the Council Utilities Department about the profusion of lighting in the substation building. So I'll ask somebody who has some information on that to speak to that so I can bring that back to the Environmental Commission. April 15th, we will be applying for open space grants. The Lawrence Brook Watershed Partnership encourages Mayor Stieber to become a climate mayor. So you can add that to your resume, Mayor, and
Absolutely.
maybe Alan can say more about that. Then we also had a long discussion of the Schwenderman property and ideas for the use, cleanup. We did get updates from George, so that was very helpful, and he'll be continuing, and we'll get more involved with him. Also, Dorian and I will be coordinating a health and wellness fair on April 21st, so we'll have a lot more information at the next meeting about that. The Middlesex County Conservation Corps has 3 spring volunteer events. I will have a few copies here, or we'll put some outside and post it online. In June is the closest one at Davidson's Mill Pond Park. And also, I just wanted to make you aware that Assemblyman Joe Danielson is having a free job fair Wednesday, April 18th from 1:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Imperia in Somerset. So I will leave those outside, and also we'll see if we can get that information out to folks as well. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from the Department of Recreation, chaired by Councilman Randy Farkas.
Thank you. Along with daily operations of deposits, registration forms, purchasing requests, as well as scheduling and interviewing new seasonal staff for the summer, the Recreation Department has the following. SAC reminders. If schools have a delayed opening, there is no AM SAC. PM SAC will go on until 6 p.m., unless a decision is made by 12 noon for inclement weather to close PMSAC. Parents will be notified via email and Facebook. If your SAC account is not up to date, please include the late fee in your payment. Monthly SAC fees are due the month prior. This does not include per diems. Registration forms are now available for spring tennis, spring soccer, and Fundamental Fours T-ball. You can pick them up at the rec department or download them offline. Spring yoga registration is now available at the recreation department as well as online. We are set to start April 9th. We are offering a trip to Beautiful Sunday, May 20th for the 2 p.m. show. It's never too early to plan for Mother's Day. Tickets are $165 and includes the bus from Milltown. Deadline has been extended to March 16th. Hunterdon Hills Playhouse presents Steel Magnolias, April 28th for a matinee show. Price of $80 per person includes a full 3-course lunch, tickets to the play, gratuity, and bus transportation. Deadline has also been extended to March 16th. We are offering a cruise to Alaska, June 7th to the 15th, 2018. There is still room if you are interested. Please contact Recreation for all the details. The deadline for both baseball games is April 6th. Please contact the Recreation Department if you would like to reserve your seat. Those games are Yankees versus Tampa Bay, Sunday, June 17th for the 2 p.m. game. This is the old timers game. Seats are field level, third baseline. $110 per ticket, includes bus transportation from Milltown. Mets versus the Los Angeles Dodgers, Sunday, June 24th, 1 p.m. game. Tickets are $90 each and includes bus transportation. Seats are field level, third baseline. The Recreation Committee will meet on Wednesday, March 21st, 2018 at 7 p.m. at Borough Hall. And that concludes the Rec Department report.
Thank you. I have a quick report from the Mayor's office. At this time, I would like to thank the following. The Milltown Office of Emergency Management, Milltown Fire Department, Milltown Rescue Squad, Milltown Police, Milltown Department of Public Works, and the Utility Department. As you recall, and it was stated earlier by Councilman Revelinsky, we had a couple of nor'easters blow through the town, leaving us in a wake of some pretty serious devastation. I think we were all kind of lulled to sleep a little bit by the fact that it started off as a really long rain instead of the snow that we anticipated. And then when the snow came, it was tremendously wet, tremendously heavy, and wreaked havoc all over town. Again, I'd like to thank all of those folks for their response. I myself was in the Office of Emergency Management from about 1 o'clock the day of the storm till about 9 o'clock at night, and then I returned the next day to check on the subsequent damage once the sun came up, and took a tour of the entire town and saw what we were left with. There's a lot of unsung heroes of the night, and some of them being fire department and rescue squad personnel who were actually out cutting tree limbs and non-electrical lines so our plows could get through. I'd like to thank them again for their service and what they helped our community through that storm. There are a number of observations that I made during the storm, and you probably wonder, well, what the hell does the mayor do in a storm? Well, I like to see how things work, because if I can understand the jobs that the people are doing, sometimes I can help by making recommendations of how to do things better. And there are a number of things that I feel that we can do better. You know, that's the thing that you do in the Office of Emergency Management, is that you're not satisfied with the response that you've had. You get through it and you say, great job. But then you always think, well, is there a better way we can do it? I don't think on the way of the fire department, rescue squad, or police, there is a better way to do it. However, there was a few things in the utilities and DPW that I think we could not necessarily do better, but do a little bit differently, and I think that's going to help the residents more than anything else. So I'm going to meet later on this week with our BA CFO and our OEM manager, and just let them know the things that I was thinking, that perhaps these would be a benefit to the residents to make the experience not so horrific. And, you know, a lot of times people have questions that you just don't have the answers to, and during an emergency, it's not easy to get someone down here at Town Hall to answer your question. Generally, the people answering the phones are inundated with all kinds, not only questions about the storm and power, but with the actual emergency calls too. So I think we'll be able to put something together to, again, better serve the residents. So on a final note, thank you very much for all the work that those fine folks have done for us. Now on a real bright and happy note. Probably remember over the past couple months, or late last year, I had a young man in here, Liam Zay. He's a jiu-jitsu champion from here in Milltown. And I mentioned to you his latest victory a couple months back, and that he was going on to the World Championship. So here's an update on the ongoing story of Milltown's own Liam Zay and his quest for jiu-jitsu excellence. On February 18th, 2018, Liam competed at the 2018 International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation's Pan Kids competition in Long Beach, California. It's the highest level and most prestigious competition for kids competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the world. He competed against kids from the world over, including countries as Japan, Brazil, and even the far state of Hawaii. I wish to happily report that Liam defeated the two-time Pan Kids champion from Hawaii in the finals, making him the new Kids Pan champion for his respective age, weight, and belt rank. That also makes him world champion. So moving forward, Liam's next goal is to compete at the British Nationals competition in London on June 24th at the Crystal Palace. I think you'll all join me in wishing to congratulate Liam on his tremendous victory and continue to wish him success in his next competition in London. So good luck, Liam. Go get him. And that concludes the mayor's report. Okay, next on the agenda is introduction of ordinances. Tonight we have one. Will the clerk please read ordinance number 18-1455 by title?
An ordinance fixing the salary and wages for various positions of the Borough of Milltown and providing for the manner of payment thereof for the year 2018.
Okay, you've heard the reading of this ordinance. What is your pleasure?
I make a motion that the resolution be amended to reflect the following changes. I would like to take off the special projects coordinator and leave the other three to be adopted.
Second.
I have well, this is actually held like an ordinance, so.
Well, then, I make a motion.
Would you like to restate that?
I move that the, how do I do that, Gabrielle? I'm sorry. I make a motion that the ordinance be amended to reflect the following changes. Excuse me. To remove the special projects coordinator.
Second.
And I can tell you my reason for wanting to do that. I feel that I need a little explanation on it. It's so vague.
Okay, well, we're going to handle as an ordinance. So I guess your motion would be that the ordinance is not adopted.
Well, I'd like to...
John, can you amend it? Or an ordinance on the floor, or is it defeating?
It doesn't automatically defeat it. when you advertise it and you have public hearing, you have to have it as amended.
Okay.
If you were to try to amend it then it would be defeating and you'd have to start over again.
So I have no problem with the three at the top. I mean, I can I ask questions about the special projects coordinator?
I guess once we get some sort of a motion.
Well, we have a motion.
I made a motion to amend it.
Why don't I have a copy of that? Here we go.
It was in the original package we sent, not the changed one.
Is it a problem that it says fixing the salaries and wages when, have we ever had a special projects coordinator before? How are we fixing it when we've never had one before?
There was a notation in previous ordinances that stated that outside of the scope of work, allotments could be made. So this is giving that its actual definition and setting a range for it.
That's a stretch, huh?
Section 3 on the...
That's a big stretch.
So, in other words, this is somebody doing the regular job and then doing extra work on top of that?
Yes, that would be special projects coordinator.
I think this should be taken out completely. We should vote this down and have this particular special projects coordinator totally separate. It's not something that we're aware of. It's not something that I have any information on. At least the other three, I know what they are from past stuff, but this should be totally separated from this ordinance, in my opinion.
And also the rate. I mean, so how can we vote on it when it goes from $100 to $2,000 per month? I mean, how is that determined? So we're talking either $1,200 to $24,000.
That's a range, the salary range.
That's the range that, if there was an individual put in this position, that would be the resolution, and at that point is where you would establish the dollar amount. This is the range and everything, setting the position, and then there would be a resolution that would appoint an individual into that position at whatever range, or I'm sorry, whatever dollar amount that the council deems to be.
Now,
But so we won't know until it's determined what this special projects coordinator is doing as to what the range would be?
Well, this is just a generic title. Okay, not generic, but I mean, it's anyone, like as the clerk said and everything, if you read section 3, it says compensation for services of special nature beyond the regular routine business of official officers shall be authorized by appropriate resolution. But
So-
in order to,
I guess my question then, Denise, is what's the difference between this and someone working overtime?
this should actually, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Borough Attorney, this is a position that the person's doing above and beyond their normal scope of normal job duties that they were hired or, employed to do by the borough.
Is there some reason that we're doing this now? Do we have some project in mind?
I'll refer to the mayor.
Yes, absolutely. The purpose of this position would be to coordinate and observe construction and varied other projects on and off site to protect the borough against defects and deficiencies in the contractor's work. The Special Projects Coordinator ensures that the borough has a construction administrator on premises on a regular basis and that the work and inspections are performed in a manner that confirms the reported results. The individual or company's supplements rather than replaces the work of the architects or engineers' employees.
So why wasn't that put on here, Mr. Mayor? I mean, we're all, as you said, we're all council people, and I have to sit up here and ask for that information. Why wasn't that provided to us so that I could have known what a special projects coordinator was?
I did not know that you would not have this supplemental information in your packet. But I have it here. If you want, I'll continue to read.
Okay.
Okay. Reportability of this employee, reportable and shall respond to directives and inquiries on a routine basis, to the mayor, but shall also respond to the directives and inquiries of the borough administrator. Performance responsibilities would be the following: on a regular basis, conduct on-site observations and comprehensive checks of work in progress as a basis for determining conformance of work, material, and equipment with the contract documents. Serve as liaison between the contractors, the borough architect and engineer, and maintain a professional relationship with the contractor and all subcontractors on the job. Protect the borough personnel from issuing instructions to the contractor or employees. Maintain orderly files for correspondence, report of project meetings, documents, including all addenda, change orders, and all other pertinent information. Keep a daily logbook recording hours on the job site, weather conditions, list of visiting officials and jurisdiction, daily activities, decisions, observations in general, and specific observations in more detail, as in the case of observing test and inspection procedures. Attend all required job meetings held on or off-site and report results. Accompany local, state, or federal inspectors through their project and record outcome of results. Prepare weekly written reports to mayor on progress of projects. This actually isn't just for one situation. This title would be any other job that may come up in the borough that needs a special coordinator. Something else like that could be if we do a revow and we need our tax assessor to go. That's generally a different contract than their contract as the assessor. That's how it was done in the past here in Milltown. So it's not just for one situation, it could be for any other kind of job that comes up.
But, Mr. Mayor, so listening to what you read now, the purpose of putting it on now is to oversee the project, the building project for the public works.
Correct.
And so, do we have someone in mind for that?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and is that person a civil service employee?
I believe so.
Well, how can they do two jobs then? Isn't that double dipping?
No.
But I guess my point is, so they're going to do their job between 9 and 5, and then after 5 o'clock do the other job? Because how can they do their full-time job when they're doing this other job?
They would be required to be at work before usual working hours and to be on site after regular working hours.
So the special project coordinator would not be doing that job during business hours, just like the rest of the three here?
Only if necessary during the day when needed.
And where in the range does that, for overseeing the project, fall? Is that $100 a month? Is it $500? Is it $1,000? Who decides that?
The council.
When?
It would be after this position is taken care of, correct?
There'll be a resolution provided to council.
Right, and this is introduction of this ordinance, then you'd have your public hearing, your adoption, then there's a 20-day estoppel period.
Why don't we just hire somebody to
It would
do
just
the
be your
job?
That's your advertising, and then it would be.
Why don't we hire, if it's important, obviously it's an important job to oversee a major construction. What's the purpose of doing it as a special projects coordinator?
Why isn't the architect doing it?
Because this is to be done to supplement the work of the architect or engineer's employees.
This is like our extra eyes and ears.
Basically what it is we do not have a person who works for the Borough of Milltown to have eyes and ears on the ground every day at a $12 million construction.
Isn't that what we pay the architect for?
No, the architect will not be overseeing the project.
Why not?
What we have is we have town inspectors that work for the engineer's office. The engineer will have duties that he is responsible for. However, we need someone who will be eyes and ears every day at the project to make sure things go smoothly.
Isn't that what we paid over $100,000 to the architect for?
No.
No.
Well, let me ask this question. We built a beautiful substation and the project went without a special project coordinator, smooth as anything, based on the oversight of an architect and I guess the engineer, CME, and we didn't need one then, and we had absolutely no problems whatsoever. I don't see the need for one now. I don't see any problems coming up where the architect and CME couldn't handle, based on their experience of having a smooth transition of our substation. And the second thing I'd like to know from Mr. Bruder is, if we are a civil service town, and we have a person who is in a civil service position, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am, that that person would have to do this job before and after his normal working hours, and there could be no, on a special occasion, have to do it during working hours. As a civil service town, I don't think that's allowed.
I don't know the answer to that question. I would defer to Labor Council, and I can look into that question, but sitting here tonight, I couldn't answer it.
Based on that, I can't vote for this. Our borough attorney's telling he doesn't know the answer to that, and we don't have Labor Council here to ask that question. We should either table it or do something, or separate, like Councilman Mayor said, separate this one out, because obviously the other three are fine, but this one here has a bunch of questions that are unanswered.
I would prefer to have someone overseeing it while the actual work is going on, not after hours or before hours.
Did you have any discussions with Labor Council in regard to this position?
Only to the extent that the position needed to be in an actual salary ordinance. That was the only thing.
And again, Mayor, this, obviously, this has been in the planning stages for quite a while, but the council members were not privy to this. Is this a special assignment for you?
It's a special assignment for you and for everyone who sits up here.
I'm a council person, and I have not seen or heard anything about this until this nebulous thing was put on this ordinance.
Right, not unlike the one that you passed tonight for SAC and other things in recreation that no one had any clue about and was never brought up to finance. So I don't understand your argument.
It's the fact that we have an architect. We've paid money already. Now we're paying extra money for something that's going to be done after hours. I mean, it's obviously a big construction project. I think it behooves everyone in the town to make sure that it's done correctly and efficiently so that it doesn't cost more. And here we're putting this on as $100 a month, or maybe $2,000 a month.
I think there should be some qualification parameters based on that job as well.
Who are we hiring? What qualifications do they have to oversee a $12 million building project?
Well,
I would prefer an architect or someone with some experience do that.
let me ask this question. Who's the architect of record on this project? Right now, we have a $12 million project out there. Who's the architect of record?
I believe it's Kistler.
You believe it's Kistler? Well, Mr. Mayor, I tried to call Kistler, and his phone he's disconnected. He's not even in business anymore. You aware of that?
I understand that his company, he has left his company, and there's some other form of it, but the architecture's responsibilities have been placed on another firm.
Okay, so do we have that information?
We have it. I don't have it on me this evening.
So then why are we talking about paying someone $100 to $2,000 a month? If you're saying we have an architect of record, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see the documentation that we have an architect of record.
Okay. Mike, who have we been working with architecturally?
Currently, not who we've been working with. Who's the architect of record right now on this project?
The architect of record would be the architect who signed the plans, and that would be a gentleman named Tom Golden. He did the architectural work.
So Mr. Golden is going to do all this inspection work for free?
No.
Is he still working at the company formerly known as Kistler?
No.
I don't really know, but you really haven't authorized any professional services for construction, both for engineering or architecture.
For administration? For
Right, you just have done design, that's right.
So we don't have an architect. That's basically what you're telling me.
I think what he's saying is we have no one for
No,
construction
no.
oversight,
No.
is what he's...
We don't have an architect. We're going to do a $12 million project without an architect?
At some point, you will need to retain the service of an architect and an engineer to review the site work.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, when were we going to find out about this?
When were you going to find out about what?
That Mr. Kistler is, or whatever his name, Mr. Golden, is not the architect of record anymore?
Well, the responsibility goes with the architect regardless of what firm he's with at this point in time.
Okay. So this all doesn't pass the smell test?
Well, it doesn't pass your smell test.
Well, I don't know.
Doesn't pass mine either, and you want
If I may,
to preach.
I haven't had an opportunity yet, so if you guys would let me for a second. Mr. Mayor, we don't have anyone lined up to do construction administration or construction oversight on the DPW fire facility going in across the street. Is that correct?
That is correct. We
Okay.
have a forthcoming meeting with the engineer coming up, I believe, probably this week or early next week.
So is this special projects coordinator more or less a means to place wheels in motion? I mean, I understand we have a construction officer who's a part-time employee. Would this be something that they could take on in the rest of their duties? Or when their other duties are finished for the day, for example, if he's inspecting a home or for permits or anything like that, and then he goes over and spends 4 hours here? Is this kind of hedging our bet so that when the time comes, if we don't like the oversight costs that we see? I mean, I have my master's in construction management, and it's not unusual for a owner, the engineer, and the contractor to all have representatives in the room. And oftentimes, the owner has his own person there to document what's going on, to make sure, quite frankly, that the engineer isn't agreeing to something that he doesn't necessarily agree with, and to stay on top of things. So I can see the point there, but I think I'd like a little bit more detail as far as where this is going, and what it's what's the future of this position afterwards. I mean, is this a person that we'd be able to utilize for when we do water mains, and possibly oversee that, so we don't have, engineering costs on top of that for simple open cut work?
Well, this would be for a special project.
Okay.
So, I mean, the position would exist, and it could be for any specific special project in the future that's beyond the scope of one's usual work. Or to bring in someone separate.
2,000 is less than a part-time salary. So I'm just, I'm wondering if that's sufficient for what we may anticipate.
Well, or if the
Or too
qualification-
much for what we may
Right.
not utilize. I mean, that's...
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's the qualification?
Yeah.
So just so I'm clear, you talked to the Labor Council about this?
Other than to the effect of, where it said, like I said, in section 3, after she reviewed our ordinances and all salary notes, she said in section 3, even though it makes that statement that compensation for service of special nature, yada, 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 she said that you still had to create or have the actual position in the salary ordinance.
Okay, but the Labor Council didn't talk anything about civil service? So, well, let me back up. Are you bringing somebody off the street to do this, or are you talking about an existing employee?
Yes, Mayor.
That would be an existing employee.
So how is an existing employee going to do their job and do this job? Because in civil service, you can't do that. You can't work out of title in a civil service. So how is that going to happen?
I think maybe, Mr. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind, in the spirit of communication, I agree with Councilwoman Mayer. I didn't know anything about it until I saw it. You had a lot of information there that you read off for us, and it sounded like a lot of money, a lot of tasks to do for, I'll exaggerate, for $100 a month. I mean, that's not realistic for all those things that you read off. I was taken by surprise. I understand what the other 3 things are there, and really you're not comparing apples to apples when you say what we approved for SAC. What we approved for SAC is something that we are all aware of, that we approve a few times a year, so we know what that is. We have information on it. We know there was job titles in there. We know what they do based on our experience.
Well, I'll disagree because last meeting I asked several people in this room and they had no idea what it was, so.
And I have no idea what a special project coordinator does, and I don't have the information. The communication was lacking here. I'm sure some council people are well aware of what this is and what your plan is, but there are some up here that were totally blindsided by this, and really, we really shouldn't be including this in this particular ordinance, in my opinion. I think we need more information. We need Labor Council to weigh in on it, if you have someone in mind, if it's even doable. And I'm not saying I'm against it, we need to get all the information before we say, yes, go ahead and do it. Maybe that's the right way to go. I'm just saying, I don't have enough information to vote yes on this for those reasons.
Well, if I can for a sec, this is just an introduction, right? So this is,
Yes.
I mean, we've opened the floodgates here to have a discussion. We can do so offline, and then revisit this next month when it's a matter of, do we want to move forward with it, amend it, or do we vote no on it, or whatever. But at least at this point, we can keep progress going by approving the introduction and putting it on for next meeting to vote on.
I didn't want to slow down the adoption of the 3 board secretaries, so that's why I wanted this one pulled. I have another question for the mayor, but I think first I'll let you answer Randy's question, Mayor, because you didn't get a chance to.
Which one was that?
Is there going to be a problem with civil service if we have a civil service person doing 2 job titles?
I don't believe so.
I beg pardon?
I don't believe so.
This is, but incidentally...
Do we need to check with the labor attorney on that?
Well,
I will, but I don't believe so either.
This ordinance doesn't get to that question quite yet. This ordinance merely fixes salaries and wages for various positions. Who you put into the position of special projects coordinator or who you propose putting in will then raise that question of whether there's a civil service issue, and then that would go to Labor Council. This is really an ordinance that creates salaries for various positions without regard to who specifically would fill, or even if you ultimately don't fill that position. This is merely introducing salary and wage for the various positions. From a procedural standpoint, what you would do, and Councilman Revelinsky is correct, it's on for introduction. Generally, there's not a discussion had at that time. There's a motion and a second and a vote to introduce it. If that vote does not pass, then this ordinance is not introduced. You go back to the drawing board and introduce something else. On the other hand, if there's a motion and second and the vote is taken and the ordinance is passed for purposes of introduction, then you have the advertisement requirement, 7 days, I believe, is a requirement, or 7 or 10 days before the actual hearing, and then adoption. And at that time, you would have your discussion with both the public and then amongst the council as to how you would proceed, or issues that pertain to this ordinance, whether you approve it, whether you don't. Councilwoman Mayor, from the standpoint of introducing or taking parts of the ordinance and separating it, really what you would do from a procedural standpoint is vote on the ordinance as written here, and if that does not pass, then you can propose a second ordinance, modified language, and then a vote and a motion and a second based on the modified language would then be had. That's procedurally how we would typically handle a matter of this, introduction of an ordinance.
But so then we could potentially hold up the 3 board secretaries fixing their salaries when this is like apples and oranges that probably, in my opinion, shouldn't all be lumped together.
And I'm not weighing in on whether it should or should not. I'm just saying from a procedural standpoint, the protocol is there to have a motion and a second to introduce, and then a vote. And typically you wouldn't have discussion like we just had, but you have a motion and a second and then a vote. If the ordinance is introduced, it's certainly not passed at that point, and then you would go forward and you would have whatever offline discussions you want to have amongst individuals. You would do your research on it, and then that discussion would take place publicly in terms of debating whether to approve or not to approve the ordinance. If the ordinance if there's a motion and a second to introduce it, and then that is voted down, then what you could do at that point in time is introduce a revised version of the ordinance, motion and second, and then a vote on whether to introduce that revised ordinance. Then you have your notice issues and publication issues thereafter.
I would still advocate for doing the board secretaries separate from the project coordinator. And Mr. Mayor, so you have someone in mind. You've obviously discussed it with Labor Council. Are you planning on sharing with the council at some time in the very near future your plans?
You would have to be the one who votes to make it happen or not, so...
But, I mean, beforehand, I mean, in the spirit of communication, which you've talked about
Well,
several times, I would have appreciated to be communicated with about this
They haven't been
position.
riced.
She's not asking you, she's
I'm not,
she's
I
fine,
said,
she
do
wants
you
to know if you will.
know, you will share with us?
I will, yes.
But I will say that I feel like I shouldn't have to be a private detective and comb through this with a fine-tooth comb, because it's with board secretaries. I mean, so in my line of work, a special projects coordinator is an administrative assistant. So obviously, I had questions about it, and the nebulous 100 to 2,000, I mean, this is a very important job that has been slid in with 3 board secretary positions that are at $150 a month. It's totally a separate thing. I think it should be a separate ordinance altogether.
Now, Mr. Bruder.
Yes.
Not to, in any way disrespectfully to you whatsoever.
Go ahead.
I believe there is a motion on the floor to amend this ordinance that has to be acted on first before you do anything else, because it was the first motion made.
Was there...
It could get voted down, and then we can redo
I make a motion
it.
to amend the resolution for the following changes to remove the special projects
Let me
coordinator.
just put you on hold for 1 second, if I may defer, or may question the clerk. Was there a motion and a second on this ordinance,
Yes.
1455?
The only motion made on the floor was Councilwoman Mayer made a motion to amend the ordinance
Okay.
to remove special projects coordinator. That motion was seconded by Councilman Legati.
Okay,
There were
so-
no other motions
All
made.
right, so then, Councilman Legato, you are correct. And as a practical matter, once there is a motion of that nature and a second, there really should be no discussion. There should just simply be a vote taken at that time. But in any event, Councilman Legato, you're correct there. If the motion that has been placed on the floor, in essence, is not 18-1455, but just for lack of a better description, let's call it 18-1455A, just for reference sake for tonight's purposes. There's been a motion to put into play, or to introduce, I should say, ordinance 18-1455A, which is modified from that which appears on the agenda. There would be a vote taken as to that motion to introduce as amended. So there would next be a roll call by the clerk to, as to the introduction of that modified ordinance.
Everybody get that?
Yep.
So this vote, if a vote yes is to remove special projects,
And to make the ordinance just,
just the board secretaries.
Correct.
And a vote no is to not accept that amendment.
and again, this is a motion simply to introduce an ordinance. It's not voting on the ordinance for public hearing and adoption, or it's not an adoption, this is just introducing.
So just to clarify, I want to introduce the ordinance for the 3 secretaries.
Correct.
Right, and then publish accordance law, correct, to be at a public hearing at our next regularly scheduled council meeting, March 26th.
That's the
Correct.
motion that's on the floor, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Bruder, since we're picking your brain, it seems, can an additional ordinance be introduced this evening? Call it 1455A, for just the last position, which by motion now is being removed from 1455.
Well, we called that other one 1455A, the Councilman Mayor's
Okay,
motion, so 1455B or 1456. Certainly, you could have a motion to introduce that ordinance thereafter. And in the future, just so I state this for the record, the better practice is to have, you can certainly do all of this, but generally you want it on the agenda rather than introducing ordinances from the floor, so to speak. But in any event, yes, you can.
Thank you.
And incidentally, if Councilman Mayor's motion were were not approved, then you can revert back to 1455 and have a motion and a second on that for introduction, or any other modified version that you come up with.
I have no problem with Councilman Revelinsky's 1455B. I just don't think they belong together, that's all. If they're separate, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Perhaps we found common ground.
Exactly.
So there would be a roll call. And again, for future reference, I'll say this, generally, once there's a motion to introduce and a second, there really shouldn't be discussion at that point. That's really preserved for purposes of the final reading and adoption night.
We're 20 minutes past that.
The motions were made as to a resolution and not an ordinance, because there's a discussion, you can hold a discussion on the motion itself at the end of the introduction of the ordinance, and not it's okay to do that during a resolution, but not an ordinance.
Correct.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Okay. So this is the vote for the amendment, just so we're clear.
Yes.
Okay, Council President Dixon.
What the hell are we voting?
Okay, that's what I was trying to say. The vote for this right now, you are voting. A yes vote means you are voting for the ordinance with the removal of special projects coordinator and merely voting on an ordinance that bases the salary on planning board, zoning board, and board of health secretary positions. A vote in the negative means that you do not want that amendment.
Okay.
Understood? Okay, so Council President Dixon.
Aye.
Councilman Farkas.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Aye.
Councilman Legati.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes to accept the ordinance with the amendment.
Okay.
Okay. So, the motion has been made, seconded, motion by Councilwoman Mayer and
Yes.
seconded by Councilman Legati, that the ordinance be adopted on first reading, published according to law, and that a next public hearing be held at our next regularly scheduled meeting on
March 26th.
March 26th, 7 p.m. at Borough Hall. That's what you just voted on.
Special projects.
Mr.
right,
Mayor,
as amended.
I'd like to make a motion from the floor, and let's just call it 18-1455B, in that it mimics 18-1455. However, the only position to be created here would be special project coordinator with a salary range of $100 to $2,000 per month. And I move that this ordinance be adopted on first reading, published according to law, and that the public hearing be held at our next regularly scheduled council meeting on March 26th, 7 p.m. in council chambers.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, seconded by Council President Dixon, that the ordinance be adopted on first reading, published according to law, and a public hearing be held at our next regularly scheduled meeting on March 26th, 7 p.m. at Borough Hall. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President, oh, wait.
Is it, oh, never mind.
Okay. Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
No.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
No.
Councilwoman Mayer?
No.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Go back on your word.
I only.
Go back on your word. Aye.
I'll tell you why. I want to do that, but I want to have
But
more
Nick told you
information
not to.
At the next meeting. At the next meeting, I want to know more about it.
It's a joke.
I beg your pardon? I'm sorry, did you have something to say?
I said,
Chair to
Sure.
No, no.
Goes to you.
I'll tell you, I wanted to get more information before I
There's no-
vote on it. That's all.
Discussion. But we're not allowed to discuss.
old business, any old business to come before the council?
We have a split decision here, am I
You do have
correct?
a split decision on that vote.
Yes, it was 3-3.
3-3.
So yes, it does go to the mayor for tiebreaker.
Mayor, what is your vote?
What are we voting on?
Vote on 15 or 1455B to put the special project coordinator.
To set a salary
just in
wage
that
for-
ordinance by itself.
I vote aye.
I'm sorry?
Aye.
Aye. Then we would have 4 ayes and 3 noes.
Okay, okay, so he voted. I just want to be sure you understand the legality of this, right? Because My advice to you is call Jennifer Malone from Civil Service tomorrow, and you ask her these questions. Ask her the question, if you can hire a special projects coordinator who's a full-time employee in the Borough of Milltown, if you can do that. You ask, somebody needs to make that phone
I'll call the
call.
contact I have for civil service. I
Okay,
have a-
well, Jennifer Malone is our analyst, so I would advise to call her.
I just have one question for you, Bruder, Mr. Bruder. Is there any way to change the numbering of the ordinance so that it falls in line with what we currently have instead of putting a B at the end of
I
it?
arbitrarily created that. If for the
Okay.
record, you'd like to call
Just
Councilman Mayor's
chronologically?
motion as 1455, or what would you call that, 1456?
I would just amend the ordinance from Councilwoman Mayor to continue it as 1455, but change the
Okay.
language of it as it's amended, since it's on introduction. And then the ordinance that was just introduced by Councilman Revelinsky, instead of calling it out 1455B, calling it 1456, as that's how our ordinances are named normally
Do
chronologically.
you have any other ordinances that are subsequently numbered after
No.
1455 as of yet? May I suggest then that Councilman Mayor's would be called 1456 because it is a different ordinance, and then Councilman Revelinsky's be called 1457. That way, there's no ambiguity as to what was 1455.
Okay.
So there would
that's-
no longer be a 1455. Councilman Mayor's would be 1456. Councilman Revelinsky's would be 1457.
I have no problem with that. Is that okay with council?
I like that number.
Yes.
Okay.
That's fine.
Dynamite.
Just for clarity's sake. Thank you.
Old business. Any old business to come before the council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I failed to mention in my utility report here that as far as old business, the utility department did meet last week, the week before, to discuss demolition of the existing electrical substation. To an extent that would be palatable and help us move forward with the project, and all food for thought, which we can discuss later. The monies or from the funding, and correct me if I'm misspeaking, but the monies from the funding that were utilized for the electric substation, I believe the state has indicated that they would allow us to utilize additional funding under that same package to demo the old substation. Also, we did meet to discuss a capital improvements plan, desire to make a 10, 15, or 20-year. Also evaluate the funding available from the state in doing so we can finally get back on track, paving roads, doing water mains, and the like. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Rich, the old substation, no dollar value in anything? Demolition is the only option with us? I don't know, I'm asking.
No, basically what it is the cost to move anything of value is so prohibitive that no one wants to move it unless they've got a place to bring it. So they say, hey, we'll take it, keep it where it is. So that does us no good. The rough numbers thrown around have been between the range of $100,000 and $150,000 to basically remove the electrical components, demo the portion of the building, and maintain the enclosure around the old transformer structure, just to maintain any sort of
PCBs.
I don't want to say that word, but chemicals, leachates, whatever it may be that's in that soil.
It's a containment area.
Yeah, containment, there you go.
It's going to remain to contain.
Thank you, Councilman Revelinsky, I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Any other old business? Seeing none? New business. Any new business to come before the council this evening? Seeing none, I will close new business. Audience comments. Please state your name and address for identification of the record. Alan?
Audience comment?
Yep, 1 second, I got somebody in front of you, young man.
Getting late there.
That guy, he wants to go to sleep.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Alan Godber for Fern Place. Going back to the agenda meeting, the item 2, when you were talking about the purchasing a senior transportation bus, I recall at the previous council meeting there was discussion about improving the energy efficiency of the senior centre. And I think I spoke at the time about it. I know the mayor thought this was a good idea. I'd like to be sure that that's going to happen, and we're not going to spend the money on the bus, and so there won't be any money to improve the senior centre.
Well, I think that was part of the discussion, is they were going to try to find out if there was alternate sources of income
Right.
that they could draw from. So I would hold off saying anything until we know if there's any other avenues to pursue.
Fair enough. Just wanted to re-emphasise that I do think that's important, that the senior centre is it's a good building, but unfortunately it uses a vast amount of energy at the moment because it's not designed very well. And we ought to be spending a little bit of money at least in order to, even if it's only, we don't do the whole building, if we do part of it and then do some more in the future, if we do something to improve that energy efficiency and make it more comfortable for the staff working there and other people, then we should try and do that soon, not like 5 years from now.
Right.
Thank you. All right, and the second thing I want to talk about is the Lawrenceburg Watershed Partnership is having a meeting a week tomorrow, Tuesday the 20th, and we are fortunate to have a representative from an organisation we've not had speaker from before, from the Nature Conservancy. I was amazed at the size of the Nature Conservancy. I googled them to see how big it is. Apparently they have a budget, they have income and, well, assets of more than $6 billion, which amazes me, and they're active in 60 countries. Anyway, we've got a gentleman who's been with them for about a year, Dr. Steve Lyon, and he's going to come and talk to us about some of the work that they're doing locally in New Jersey, mainly to do with improving the operation of and flow of rivers, efficiency of the way water's handled and the way you can restore waterways. So clearly very important for us all to learn about, because we find out what they're doing and we can see how that will help us as well. And he's also going to refer to work going on in Nepal, and what was the other place? I forget, doesn't really matter anyway. So he's going to refer to some other activities and experiences he's had before, and he also is a professor in Stockholm, of all places. So this guy obviously has a wide experience. So please come join us a week tomorrow, the 20th, at the Senior Centre, 7:30 p.m. And hopefully it'll be a good evening.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Young man,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm Calvin Wagner. I'm sure you remember my brother, Leo Wagner, and the LED. I actually have an update, and it starts with the nor'easter. One of those sodium vapor lamps on our street was knocked down, and some electrical people, for example, Don Herman and Anthony, came by to fix it, and we asked if they were going to replace it with the LED lights. Apparently, you can only get the LED lights, but we did also find out that there are 3 settings: low, medium, and high. And the one which they put there is set on low. It's very bearable, and we like it. And there's one which is further down the street, it's set to high. I would like to ask that all the future LED lights be set to low, because, well, Leo's reasons why we don't like the high ones.
Is there also something about the angle of the way the light is fixed that you'd like to comment on?
I believe Dad mentioned something about he wanted them to be angled downwards. I don't remember the reason though.
Yeah.
So they shine on the street and not on your house?
Ah, yes, that was it.
There you go. Very good. I want you to be the advocate for the street light in front of my house, because it shines right in my window. But it works out great when I have a power outage and then I have free light coming in from the street, so that's not a bad thing either.
But then you won't be able to sleep because it's just that bright.
That's true.
So if it's set to low, then you might actually be able to sleep with it
I agree.
shining in your window.
Councilman Revelinsky, do you have
Address the issue.
any other information for this young man?
Nothing other than that, upon the return of our utility director, we can have a discussion, and we'll see all the locations that they are, and if we can have those set to low, young man. And I appreciate you coming forward and bringing this to our attention, and all the hard work. And I hope that you weren't the one pushing that tree down to take the utility pole out last week, and that it was, albeit the wind. Just, keeping my eye on you, young man.
I wouldn't be strong enough to do
Remind him a scout is trustworthy.
Also, a scout is trustworthy.
Beautiful.
So, you can trust me on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, young man.
Bye.
Thank you. Alan?
Alan Godber again, 4th Fern Place. I'd like to comment on what the young man just said. We really appreciate the efforts that he's put in and his father in thinking about how important the lighting is in town. I do agree, when we did a study some years back from the Environmental Commission, that we found some lights that were shining on people's properties, which is not legal. You know that. There are ordinances that say you will not do that. And they were not lighting the street properly. So there are some in town that need to be adjusted. But I also heard something recently that was rather disturbing scientifically. There's been some studies done apparently, and I'll be pleased to try and look this up to inform you better about this, that LEDs have been found to affect people's ability to sleep properly. And there are some effects due to the particular type of light. And this is a study which people feel is very disturbing, that if you're affected by that light and it's disturbing you at night when you're trying to sleep or wherever if the light's shining on you, then you may not be able to sleep properly and you won't even realize you're not sleeping properly. So I will investigate this further and see if we can get some actual written material that states what this is about. But it may be something that we should be aware of at least.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. We look forward to getting that information. Anyone else? Phil Zembran at 40 Van Loo. Has there been a change in the posting of agendas? I understand there's a website update that's going on, but has there been a change in agendas being posted to the website?
No, unfortunately, the agenda this week, we were waiting on certain documentation, so I did not have a finalized agenda until today. That's why it wasn't posted to the website.
Okay. Thank you. So without the agendas posted to the website, you actually don't know, folks in town don't know if they should come down here or not, because most of the folks on the council have a lot more information in front of them than a resident has. So when I look at this agenda and I see, and I'm happy in a way, because the funding for this construction company is dropped to 10.7 million from 15.8 million. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that to this day, I've never seen any sort of calculation or anything, presentation of how we got to the 15.8 million. I think now that we're past a lot of timelines, a lot of time frames, that someone on the finance committee here should put together a presentation to the public to show where $10.780 million is going to be spent, especially given the fact that if it wasn't for Councilwoman Mayer, we would know there isn't an architect. Well, there's an architect. There's an architect of record? Yeah. Okay. But we're trying to push through a special projects coordinator somehow in this budget. Is it included in the funding for the 15.8 million that's now 10.7 million? Is it included in the 2018 budget? Is it like, there's so many things moving around here. I don't know how you expect a resident to kind of follow what's going on.
Well, the 2018 budget hasn't yet been adopted or even presented to the public. We're still working on that.
Which leads me to my next point. Is there going to be a 2018 presentation, public presentation? I'm talking about a PowerPoint up on a wall that shows, hey, this is what we did in 2017. These are the drivers. Okay, these are the things that we're going to focus on in 2018 to spend our dollars. Point by point. You don't have to get detailed. Keep it summary level. Is that in place? And if not, why not?
I gotta say, it hasn't been discussed yet as whether or not it will or will not occur.
And who makes that decision?
Council.
Council. Who on the council makes that decision?
Well, Councilman Dixon's in charge of finance, as well as Councilwoman Mayer and myself sit on the committee as well. So I believe once we get through the budget, we'll be more apt to answer your question. But thank you.
One of the meetings in April, that I hear that's when the budget's going to be presented?
I'm hoping to do it in April, depending. The meetings are going on. Like I said, we have another one scheduled for Friday. We've been meeting twice a week.
So the special projects coordinator, that sounds to me like we have a zoning official that we're trying to give a really big raise to do this job on the side. That's what that sounds like to me. And I don't have the information in front of me that you guys all have in front of you.
I don't have anything in front of me that says anything regarding a zoning officer. I don't have anything in front of me that says the 15 minus $10.8 million is going to result in $4 million somehow paid out to a maximum of $2,000 a month over the next God knows how many years. So you're in the dark as much as we are, sir, and until we have these things resolved and answered, that's the best we can offer at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I will...
Actually, just one more. So normally when you go in, this is, as Kate was asking,
Kate.
Normally when you go into executive session, like you're going to be, I don't keep the camera on because you just go after that.
Right.
If you're coming back in to take action or something, you just like keep the camera going, you know, off while you're having executive session and back in afterwards tonight?
Yes. Yes.
You want me to?
Yes.
Yes.
I want to know, you want that recorded as well?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Thank you. Sorry, just a point of order.
Okay. Closed council comments. No mayor comments this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I think
Wait,
you've got
I
another
had, we didn't go to council comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's,
Council comments.
there's still audience.
No, we have residents.
Oh,
still.
I'm sorry. Come on up.
My name is Kelsey Valenti. I live at 48 Leonard Road. I'm new to town. We moved in about a year ago. And I've called the borough, I'd say, about 4 times in the past year about our water in our house. And it's just disgusting. I've had a professional water person come in and tell me that we had high levels of like toxic minerals and bacteria and everything else. And I have a 10-month-old that I had to bathe in this water. And it's affecting, at this point, our everyday life. My coffee maker, which I have photos of, is disgusting. My humidifier in my son's room, my sanitizer, everything that water touches, my tub, I have to clean my tub like every 2 to 3 days because the water in the tub makes a rim and etc. So not only on cleaning products, I'm replacing my humidifier. I bought 3 different humidifiers. So my question is, I haven't had a resolution yet, and when I did call, they told me to buy a filter for my home. I was told that I'm the last house in Milltown or something for the water main, so they'd have to connect it to something else in order for the water to flow correctly. And I just don't see why, if my taxes are as absurd as they are, and my water bill is pretty pricey, why am I having to pay for a filter now? And I wasn't alerted of any of this when I moved in this home or anything regarding this. So what would a solution be from you guys for me? Because I'm sure I'm not the only home that's the last one in Milltown. I think there's 2 or 3 more that they mentioned.
I think the town engineer would be able to give you some information on that. Mike, would you like to?
If I may.
Yeah, of course.
And I understand the frustration. Are you on Leonard Road near Blueberry or Leonard Road near Harkins?
Blueberry.
Blueberry, okay. So have you called the utility supervisor to ask him to take a look at the water at this point?
Yes.
Okay. And what basically it looks like you're at obviously a dead-end street.
Yeah.
The water line, I don't know every water line, I don't have the water map in front of me tonight, but it looks like it probably dead ends. And
We're the last one. So basically, if you turn on my bathroom sink,
right.
Usually in the morning or at night when you're not really using it too much, it's brown water coming out of it.
Right.
And again, like, would any of you want to put a child, let alone drink, or put in your dog's bowl this water?
I understand.
Yeah.
We call it discolored water is basically what it would be called. And typically what happens on a dead-end line, and we have cast iron mains, and what happens is that the cast iron is just old, and basically what you get at times is sediment inside your water. It's generally iron deposits more than anything else. I don't know about the tests. If you had test results, you probably should send them over to the borough because that would be helpful. Because,
and again, I've contacted and said I would do that, and they said the only solution, whoever I spoke to, said that the only solution was for me to buy my own filter, which has to be changed every 3 months, the filter, which is another cost for me, which no one else in town is doing, so why do I have to do it?
Yeah, I think I understand. We will review with the superintendent utilities and see if we can come back with a recommendation, Mayor and Council, how to solve the problem.
Okay. And when will I hear back about this?
Well, if you'll leave me your number, I'll try to call you within a week.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, perfect. Thank you.
May I ask who you spoke with when you called?
I can't recall who, but it was 2 different times. It was a man. I have his number in my phone, but I'm not 100% on the name, so I don't want to state it yet.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close audience comments and open up to council comments.
Yes.
Go ahead, Rick.
I'd just like someone to answer a question for me. So I don't know if Mr. Bruder, if one of the professionals, is there an architect for the construction phase of this project? Because I heard yes from the mayor that we have an architect. But I want to know, is there an architect for the construction phase of this municipal project?
There is a licensed architect that signed the plans, right?
That's not what I asked.
I think the answer is that you have not authorized an agreement with an architect, or our office for that matter, for the construction.
So then that would be no.
Right now, we don't have an engineer either.
I didn't ask about an engineer, I asked about an architect. 2 times in my conversations with you, Mr. Mayor, you said that there was an architect.
There is. Architect of record is the man who signed the plan.
There's an architect for the construction phase of this project?
We have not had the meeting to put together our team for the construction of the building.
So the answer is no.
No, the answer is yes, there's an architect, but the team has not been put together for the construction phase.
So who's the architect?
What's the name of the man who signed the plans, Mr. McClellan?
I believe it was Tom Golden or his designee. I don't have the plans in front of me. Tom Golden is the architect that we worked with during the project design.
Thank you.
Now, has anyone spoken to Mr. Golden? Because I tried to call him, and his number is disconnected.
Well, you can see if there's another number for him.
Well, he didn't leave a forwarding number, so all I can do is call the number that's on the plans.
I'm sure after we have our meeting, we will issue a who's who for all of the council, so they know who the players are for the construction phase of the building.
Can I ask a question about the architecture? And I'm sorry to bring this up during the council comments portion, but just curiosity, is there anything particularly overly detailed about this project or intrinsic that would require an architect with specific knowledge to oversee this, or is this very, kind of straightforward construction where the plans are the plans and, there's nothing overly complicated about them that any run-of-the-mill architect familiar with these type of buildings in general would be able to approve, disapprove, or keep this project on track?
I think that, just take it from just engineering perspective first, the buildings are more than our office can handle. We look at these buildings, since they're buildings that are occupied by personnel in the borough, it's not something that I feel comfortable with doing the construction management. So you're going to need an architect. You're also going to need what's called a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineer. And because I think that's important, because you have the heating system in the floor of the building. So that particular component is very important. And then obviously the site work would be where an engineer would come in and basically observe the site work. So that's generally the team that's put together for something like this. With regard to the intricacies of the building, because they're offices and places where people will work and inhabit, it's something that you need an architect who's used to doing these buildings. It's also a wood frame construction, so it's not your standard block and mortar type building. So again, that's a special expertise that certain architects may not have. Conventional construction would be block and mortar and probably structural steel. This particular building is wood frame. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that, it's just a different way. So the answer is you will need personnel to do this. My office does not feel comfortable doing the whole building, assuming you were going to ask us, and that you didn't. But we certainly, on the site work, we designed it, so we feel comfortable doing that. But you really are going to need a team, and at some point, and that's typically done after the project is awarded, or sometimes beforehand, but sometimes it's done in the initial part of the job. In this particular case, all you did was authorize the design, not the construction phase.
Okay.
And whoever we deem to do that should be either certified or qualified or have some experience in that particular field, correct? Would that be a recommendation from you?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other council comments?
Yes, I have a few, Mayor. First, I want to thank the DPW and the Utility Department for doing an excellent job during the storms. I was wondering, though, if we could get some sort of metrics from the two departments about the number of trees that came down, or how many lines were brought down by them, or the work that it required, so that we could get some estimate on that, since the borough hadn't been doing their due diligence with the tree removal all along, if that caused any additional damage. The second comment I wanted to make was to Councilwoman Kerber's recommendation for a referendum. I found that kind of ironic, because I stood up at that podium last year when the council was about to approve a $15.8 million bond ordinance, and I asked if that might be a good idea for a referendum, and I was told that that's why we elect a council. And Mayor Stieber said if people don't like it, then they should cut down on their $4 Starbucks coffee, or further let back up the moving van and move out. And so now, when we're talking about a $200,000 referendum for Little League, we have a problem with it, and we want to do a referendum. The third thing I wanted to comment on is we've been talking quite often about open communication, and again tonight is a meeting that is going till 10 o'clock, because we didn't have open communication beforehand. If we had had communication, which, again, if it's a good idea, I will fully support it. I would just like to know the exact thing that is going on before it is placed on an agenda within something else. So I really encourage all of us to work together. And Mayor, I would say the same to you, that if you had put some information about the Special Projects Coordinator position before us, before we got to the meeting or got the agenda, it would have made things run much more smoothly. And lastly, I'd like to invite Ms. Riley up so that she could address me face-to-face with her comments that she had before when we were having a council meeting. So please come up and feel free to tell me exactly what you think. I'm an elected official and I want to meet my constituents, so please feel free to speak freely.
I'm sorry, but the public portion's been closed.
But she's not allowed to address me specifically?
If you guys want to have a knockdown, drag out, please take it outside.
No, I'd like her to go on record with what she says about my job on the council.
Again, we've already closed that section.
Oh, I'm sorry you didn't get to come up. Okay, great, good. Looking forward to it.
Okay. Anyone else on the council? None. I will close council comments. Mayor's comments. Past meeting, I had a long discussion about trees and shade trees and 250 trees in the public right-of-way that are slated to be removed since 2006. Okay? And then we have this storm, and probably half of them dropped big branches and broke utility lines and electric lines, and still nothing tonight about what are we going to do about these trees. And then, on my ride through town after the storm, I noticed the amount of trees that were down on borough properties, public parks, our swimming pool, etc., etc. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, there are about 250 trees in the right-of-way that are already slated to be removed. There are countless other trees in our public parks and public properties that need to be removed as soon as humanly possible. The amount of money that this borough has just spent on the past two storms for tree damage, electric line damage, and damage that was created by borough folks because the lines were down blocking our streets that had to be cut, okay, is extremely costly. Now, I'll ask you again, when are we going to do something with these trees? Okay? Again, 250 in the right-of-way, countless numbers elsewhere. You might want to just say 500 trees. Okay? We have to do something about this. It's ridiculous. We spend more money fixing things that the trees break than we spend every year cutting them down. Doesn't make any sense. So again, to the powers that be, maybe you want to get in a room, figure it out, let's get a plan and move forward, because as Council President Dixon said, we're putting the budget together. Now's the time. Okay, start thinking about it in June. It's too late. Budget's cut. You're not doing anything for another year. So now's the time, ladies and gentlemen. And that concludes the mayor's comments. Now we will go into a executive session that, hold it, wait for it. Councilman Legati will proudly bring it home.
So excited. Okay. I move that Resolution 18-090 to enter into an executive session be approved by council, and that council will enter executive session immediately following the vacation of council chambers by the public. Council reserves the right to take action upon returning to the public session.
Okay, you've heard the reading of the resolution. What is your pleasure?
Move that this resolution be adopted.
A second?
Wait. Oh,
You just need a second for
you
him.
just need a second.
I didn't
Okay.
need a
Second.
motion.
I have a second.
I have a second by Councilman Revelinsky.
Perfect.
Will the clerk please call roll?
Council President Dixon.
Aye.
Councilman Farkas.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Aye.
Councilman Legati.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes to enter executive session.
So moved. We will take about 5 minutes and get right into this. Okay, next on the agenda this evening is a resolution. Will the clerk please read Resolution 18-091 by title, please?
A resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown awarding Macaulay Construction Company the Public Works and Firehouse contract in an amount not to exceed $10,780,332.55.
Okay, you've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
I make a motion that this resolution be adopted.
Seconded.
I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, seconded by Council President Dixon, that the resolution is adopted. Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk please call roll?
Council President Dixon.
Aye.
Councilman Farkas.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Aye.
Councilman Legati.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. This time I will accept the motion for adjournment.
So be it.
Second.
I have a motion by Council President Dixon, seconded by Councilwoman Kerber, that this meeting be adjourned. Is there any discussion? None. All those in favor signify by saying good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Opposed?